Looking around, his eyes were blurred, but he could vaguely make out this rundown house. The Wu family, one of the top 10 influential clans in Yu Kingdom. Renowned for their swords, they even had a Wu family sword tomb, housing the strongest sword in Yu Kingdom. Jian Wushuang was reborn into such a family, which was actually quite fortunate. However, he didn't expect to be framed right after his rebirth. In his mind, he gleaned the memories of this body. As a collateral branch member of the Wu family, it was natural for him to wield a sword. But his naturally weak bones made it impossible for him to cultivate divine power. Though he was piled with pills to become a prenatal cultivator, his divine power was still inferior to that of postnatal cultivators. Gradually, the family gave up on him. If it were really so, it might have been for the best. What he didn't expect was the stepmother's venomous heart towards this body. She initially treated him fairly well, perhaps because he was just a waste. But in an accident, his stepmother, Xianxia, discovered a nascent sword bone in his body. Sword bone. It was a naturally born sword embryo. Possessing a sword bone meant that one was destined to become an immortal cultivator. And they would also master the ultimate swordsmanship, becoming the most extraordinary sword cultivator. It was precisely because of this ancient sword fragment that Wu Shuang couldn't cultivate divine power. Because most of the cultivated divine power went into the sword bone, nourishing it continuously. The glory of the Wu family's ancestors gave birth to someone with a sword bone. Wu Shuang was the second. For those who possessed a sword bone, the divine power cultivated in their youth would all enter the sword bone. That's also why Wu Shuang was cursed as a loser and a waste by others. The formation of sword bones requires many treasures. Upon learning this, Chun Qingxian devoted all her efforts to nurturing Wu Shuang. Although the members of the Wu family were somewhat puzzled, they greatly admired Chun Qingxuan's character. She was Wu Shuang's stepmother and had no obligation to care for him so much, especially since she had her own child. That child was Wu Di, Wu Shuang's half-brother. But outsiders were unaware that Chun Qingxuan's actions were all for the sake of her own son. She wanted the sword bones within Wu Shuang to be transplanted into her son, Wu Di. Wu Di was only a year younger than Jian Wushuang. He had just turned 16 this year. In his early years, Wu Shuang's father, Wu Yong, doted on him greatly, following the order of seniority. However, it was later discovered that Wu Shuang's physique was simply not suitable for cultivation, so he was given up on, becoming even more indifferent. On the contrary, Wu Di displayed extraordinary potential, making Wu Yong proud within the family. Wu Yong's strength only reached the Mahayana realm, not even attaining immortal status. Although he was a direct descendant, he didn't hold much power. It was solely because of this one son that he rose to a mid-level position within the family and became an elder. Wu Di, at just 16, was already reached the myriad forms cultivation realm. It was truly remarkable. Jian Wushuang also admired him greatly. At 16, he was still a naive youth. But these despicable individuals actually extracted Wu Shuang's sword bones and gave them to Wu Di. This made him very displeased, even though it was only borrowing this body. But since he was reborn into this body, he was going to seek justice for Wu Shuang. Wu Shuang, Wu Shuang. How truly fateful. Jian Wushuang picked up the water jug on the table and took a sip. Watching Su Meier kneeling on the ground, Jian Wushuang spoke coldly. Finish speaking and get lost. Su Meier knelt on the ground, looking pitifully at Jian Wushuang, tremblingly said, "Thank you, young master, for sparing my life. Everything was instructed by Chun Qingxian. Don't worry, I never kill women." Jian Wushuang waved his hand dismissively. Su Meier was obedient under his threat. She spilled everything. Her memory of 3 days ago was very vague. She didn't know much about it. It followed on from the memories she had absorbed. After understanding the current situation, she stabilized. For now, there was no worry of life or death. Upon hearing his words, Su Meier revealed a flattering smile, hastily got up, and was about to leave. Jian Wushuang stared at her figure, shaking his head. Swish! A chopstick on the table was flicked by him and pierced directly through Su Meier's chest. Humph! Wu Shuang might spare women, but I, Jian Wushuang, don't carry that burden in my heart. Now he was Jian Wushuang, an invincible emperor who had lived for several epochs and had not yet fully recovered his strength. How could he be soft-hearted? After dealing with Su Meier, Jian Wushuang dragged her body under the bed, then sat cross-legged on the bed, starting to recover his strength. His current state had dropped too severely. He could only barely maintain the power of all things, which was not enough to seek justice from Wu Shuang. On second thought, he had no relatives or friends here. His mother, Yuchi Mingyue, had fallen early. His father, Wu Yong, looked down on him and hadn't seen him for years. Even if they met, it was indifferent. When he was outside, he was treated as if he hadn't seen him at all. In a world where martial prowess reigned supreme, particularly within prominent families like the Wu family, a worthless son was akin to hanging shame upon the family name. But for reasons tied to Wu Di, it seemed Wu Yong would forever struggle to hold his head high. It was because of Wu Di that Wu Yong couldn't bear to face Wu Shuang. Jian Wushuang shook his head, sighing, "Poor child. Pitiful. Miserable. He was once the seed of ultimate potential, but his destiny was cruelly snatched away by his wicked stepmother." If Jian Wushuang's suspicions were correct, it was likely Wu Shuang's death that led to him inhabiting this body. The cycles of the world. Though Wu Shuang had perished, his name lived on. But now with the word Jian preceding it. Jian Wushuang. Ha! After taking a moment to recuperate, Jian Wushuang's cultivation had regressed significantly. However, drawing from experiences of his past life, he swiftly used some acquired divine power to staunch the bleeding from his chest wound. Now, without Wu Shuang's sword bone, Wu Di could cultivate a potent divine power, somewhat freeing himself from constraints. Living as a mortal, he led a mundane existence. Soon, 3 days had passed. At the rear mountain of the Wu residence, within a luxurious estate nestled amidst the resting quarters for the womenfolk, Chen Qingxian, with her exquisite beauty, was guiding her son's training. "My son, how is your recovery progressing?" Chen Qingxian doted on her son, pride evident in her gaze. The transplantation of the sword bone had left more than just Wu Shuang injured. At this moment, Wu Di was also greatly weakened. Yet, with countless treasures bolstering him, he quickly adapted to the backlash brought forth by the sword bone. And this segment of sword bone had already reached perfection within him. He already possessed the sword eye, and now, coupled with the sword bone, his future adversaries, perhaps, would truly become unbeatable. However, he didn't feel too much joy. When he looked at his mother, there was puzzlement in his sword eye, as well as a trace of unwillingness. He already possessed the sword eye. The path to invincibility had begun. Why bother seeking a segment of sword bone from a weaker individual? Wu Di was still too young to understand, and unwilling too. It was the unwillingness of his self-esteem. As for Wu Shuang, he hadn't even bothered to consider him. Although Chen Qingxian was Wu Di's mother, she was unaware of her son's inner thoughts. "Mother, I'm fine." Wu Di's tone was cold as he responded softly. Chen Qingxian, however, was quite excited. She continued, "Good that you're fine. Just focus on recuperating here. I'll take care of things outside." The outside? Wu Di was somewhat puzzled. What did his mother mean by the outside? He had no fondness for Wu Shuang and had never considered him as an opponent. Naturally, he was unaware. But Chen Qingxian knew. Even Wu Shuang himself didn't know that he had an uncle, an immortal uncle, and he had already arrived at the Wu family. "It's Yuchi Mingfeng." Chen Qingxian slowly rose to her feet, leaning against Wu Di. Wu Di's expression changed, surprised. "You mean that Mingjiao prodigy, young King Yuchi Mingfeng from Mingjiao?" In Yu country, there were two major super sects. One was the Seven-Star sect, the orthodox sect of the ancient Wood continent. The other was Mingjiao. The Seven-Star sect, Qingyun sect, was said to be as old as the heavens and earth, with its origins traced back to the celestial maiden who opened the ancient moon spacetime. It had been passed down to this day and was the #1 sect in Yu Kingdom. Even the royal family treated Qingyun sect with utmost respect. Mingjiao, however, was different. It was a rising star. Though not as ancient as Qingyun sect, its overall strength was not inferior. Young King Yuqi Mingfeng was one of the contemporary geniuses of Mingjiao. He was a significant figure. Even the Wu family had to take him seriously. Although Wu Di was young, he harbored aspirations for those geniuses, and deep down he had confidence in himself. Little did he expect that someone like that would be related to his useless brother Wu Shuang. Don't worry, I have arranged for your uncle to return. Yuqi Mingfeng is ultimately just an immortal, but your uncle is an emperor, Chun Qingxian said confidently. Even if it was a prodigy from the Mingjiao sect, so what? This was the Wu family, a prominent clan of Yu Kingdom, a superfamily under the Qingyun sect of the seven-star sects. In terms of background and strength, they were much higher than the young king. After inspecting his son, Chun Qingxian hurriedly left the guest hall of the Wu family. Wu Qiong, the eldest son of the Wu family's third branch, Wu Di's uncle, and also Wu Shuang's uncle, was confronting a handsome young man. Wu Qiong, my nephew is just a bastard child of your third branch. Why bother stopping me? Since you don't value him, what harm is there in letting me take him away? Yuqi Mingfeng's tone was cold. He owed a lot to this nephew of his. When his sister fell, he was in seclusion. Now that he had emerged from seclusion and learned of his sister's death, that nephew whom he had never met became the butt of jokes in the Wu family. Naturally, he wanted to take him away. He was his last living relative. Even if he was useless, he would protect him for life. But he never expected that the Wu family would refuse to let him take him away under the pretext of being a family member. This caught him completely off guard. Given the nature of the Wu family, with a bastard child who couldn't cultivate divine power, they would be more than happy to let Wu Shuang go with his uncle. Wu Qiong had been smiling all along, neither offending nor helping this young king. Mingfeng, my dear friend, you needn't worry about matters concerning my Wu family's descendants. Wu Shuang is living well within the Wu family. Why bother? It's better to let him enjoy a leisurely life. It's a beautiful thing. Yet, deep down, Yuqi Mingfeng harbored suspicions. Pausing for a moment, he sneered, "Ha, a leisurely life? If that were truly the case, he would be relieved." However, some days ago there was a sudden pang of pain, a backlash brought about by karma. He sensed that his nephew had encountered trouble, compounded by the fall of his sister. Hence, he hastily left seclusion to come here. Before arriving at the Wu family, he learned about his nephew's situation and had already made up his mind to take Wu Shuang away. Isn't this a good arrangement? A voice interrupted their confrontation. Entering the main hall was Chun Qingxian. Yuqi Mingfeng didn't turn his head, but an overwhelming sense of pressure burst forth from him. Seeing this, Wu Qiong's expression also changed. Chun Qingxian remained composed, walking up to Wu Qiong and offering a slight bow before turning to Yuqi Mingfeng, saying slowly, "Although Wu Shuang is not my biological son, in terms of status, he's also my child. Brother Mingfeng, there's no need to worry. After all, Wu Shuang's surname was Wu." This statement was also meant to persuade Yuqi Mingfeng to back down. But the other party didn't seem inclined to do so. Wu Qiong nodded with a smile, remaining silent on the sidelines. The confrontation in the main hall continued. Meanwhile, after 3 days of adjustment, Jian Wushuang finally managed to recover from his injuries to a large extent. Phew! Jian Wushuang breathed out heavily. Now, apart from his soul, he was just an ordinary person. With his origin source temporarily inactive, he couldn't possibly regain his peak state. "I need to find some help," Jian Wushuang frowned. If he continued to cultivate like this, he feared he would have to live another life. But now, finding himself in this situation, he didn't have the time to live another life and slowly cultivate with the talent of this body. It would probably take at least 10,000 years to reach the immortal realm, that is, to unlock the origin source and become a Yen immortal. Even with his past life's experience, it would still require hundreds of years. And it would also require many external items. He couldn't afford to wait. He came to this space-time to achieve the tribulation realm. Actually, several hundred or even 10,000 years of time wasn't considered long. It's just that his current situation doesn't allow him to wait. What if that stepmother of his decides to kill him? When in doubt, it's better to slip away first. If an emperor is willing to help him, he only needs a trace of the power of origin source to activate the origin source space within him, which would instantly draw out the power of life. With the power of life, he could quickly recover to his peak. But now, with no one to turn to, where could he find an emperor to help him? Just when Jian Wushuang was in a dilemma, he suddenly felt a wave of karma descending in his heart. It's not far away, and the other party is very powerful. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. There are too many people in the Wu family who are connected to him by blood. However, the feeling it gave him was rather indifferent. But the aura that had just descended was incredibly gentle. It felt like family, and the attitude towards him was different from that of the Wu family. This surprised Jian Wushuang greatly. Right now, he lacked such a relative. As long as he restored his peak, the grudges in this body could be quickly resolved, and then he could search for others. I wonder where Hu Qing and the others went. According to the memories of this body and various things he had seen before, this temporal river was very powerful. Indeed, it was as powerful as Teacher Xianxia said, even more so than the Moro spacetime he had encountered before. It was one of the most dazzling 9 temporal rivers in the starry sky. Its internal structure was also different from other temporal rivers. The main structure consisted of 9 heavens and 10 lands. As for the universe, it floated above the temporal river like stars. The ancient Wood continent was one of the 10 lands. He had entered the ancient Wood continent. Where did Hu Qing and Wu's go again? At this moment, others had the same thoughts. It's just that the experiences of others were slightly better than Jian Wushuang's, but not significantly better, as they were all striving to restore their peak. Hui Qing's experience, however, was different from theirs. But whether it was good or bad, everything was still unclear. The situation was yet to be determined. The 10 members of the Qishan Temple all had different experiences, but their goals were the same: to become great and strong, to shine once again. Jian Wushuang didn't dwell on these thoughts. Instead, he got up and left the room. As for the maid's body, he had already destroyed it completely. Stepping out of the room and pushing open the door to the courtyard, he found 2 men in sturdy attire standing outside. Both seemed to be at the initial stage of the myriad form stage. When they saw Jian Wushuang coming out, their eyes narrowed. These 2 were arranged here by Chun Qingxian. Originally, they weren't meant to keep an eye on Jian Wushuang, but Wei Qi Mingfeng suddenly showed up at the door. Fearful that Jian Wushuang might leave, she decided to keep him under soft confinement for a while. At the same time, she arranged for treasures to be sent over, intending to heal Jian Wushuang's injuries first before anything else. Even if she didn't agree to let Yuqi Mingfeng take Jian Wushuang away, she couldn't stop him if he wanted to see Jian Wushuang. If they found injuries on Jian Wushuang later, it wouldn't be good. However, what Chun Qingxian didn't expect was that the treasures she bestowed had already been secretly taken by these 2 myriad forms cultivators. They both thought Wushuang was just a waste. Even if he was given treasures, they wouldn't be useful. So they decided to take advantage of it themselves. This wasn't the first time they had done something like this. Young Master Wushuang, where are you going instead of recuperating here? One of the cultivators with triangular eyes stepped forward, blocking Jian Wushuang's path. Although they didn't know why this young master had chosen this place to recuperate, since Chun Qingxian had instructed, they wouldn't let Wushuang leave even half a step. Jian Wushuang didn't even spare them a glance, coldly remarking, "Do I need your permission for where I want to go?" The 2 servants from the Wu family dared to offend him so brazenly. It seemed like his current appearance was quite pathetic. Despite the pseudo-care from Chun Qingxian, it was doubtful if anyone would regard him with respect. Seeing the young master who was originally weak-willed, unable to cultivate any divine power, suddenly showing some backbone, left everyone surprised. For a moment they were taken aback. But as Jian Wushuang continued to move forward, the 2 men simultaneously blocked his path. "Tsk, where does the young master intend to go?" Servants naturally don't dare to ask too much. "But someone above has instructed us to guard the young master here. Please understand." The man with triangular eyes, with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes, stood in Jian Wushuang's way, revealing his broad chest. However, Jian Wushuang just sneered. He never imagined that one day he would be threatened by two ordinary humans. "You're asking for death." Killing intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes as he raised his leg and kicked directly into the chest of the man with triangular eyes. The force behind this kick was tremendous, coupled with the fact that the other party didn't take it seriously. Thinking that the Wu Shuang in front of them was still the useless young master as before, they didn't pay much attention. But what surprised him was that just with one kick, he sent the man flying several yards away, severely injuring his physical body. In the cultivation system where divine power was primary, the physical body was the first barrier. Mortals primarily cultivated their physical bodies, and divine power was like the origin source. Much like the two myriad forms practitioners before him. Although they were mortals, they possessed bodies 10 times stronger than normal, yet they still fell short in front of Jian Wushuang. Although his current body was weak, with his past life's experience and his powerful soul, he now possessed the peak combat power of the myriad forms realm. While his physical body was weak, his divine power was extremely strong. He was actually surprised that his kick didn't kill the other person. The cultivation system in this dimension was quite interesting. "You!" The other myriad forms practitioner stared at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. They never expected Jian Wushuang to suddenly attack. This caught them off guard. The young man with triangular eyes who had been kicked far away was brimming with anger. Ignoring his injuries, he stood up straight and shouted at Jian Wushuang, "You ignorant brat! You don't know what's good for you. Otherwise, you'll regret it today." Even though they were just servants of the Wu family, being beaten by a waste like Jian Wushuang still stirred feelings of resentment and anger within them. Regret. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists slightly. There were many things that could make him regret, but none of them were within the capability of these insignificant minions. In the next moment, he flashed forward and instantly appeared in front of the other party. A swift chop severing the man's head clean off. Hot blood gushed out instantly. The man with triangular eyes was thoroughly shocked to see his companion killed instantly. He never imagined that the weak young master from before, a waste, could kill a myriad forms realm's cultivator in an instant. "You! How dare you kill someone?" The man with triangular eyes kept retreating, pointing shakily at Jian Wushuang, unable to articulate his words coherently. But privately, he had already sent a message for help. Chun Qingxian had issued strict orders to not let Jian Wushuang take a single step out. At the same time, a patrol team of cultivators was already approaching from the distance. However, inside the guest hall, Chun Qingxuan's eyes flickered, and a hint of unease emerged in her heart. This unease seemed to be not because of the current situation with Yuqi Mingfeng, but because of Wu Shuang, the Wu Shuang who had already become a complete waste. The care she had shown him before was only for the sake of the sword bone. Now that Wu Shuang had completely fallen into ruin. The reason for stopping Yuqi Mingfeng from taking him away was fear of the truth being exposed. In just a few months, she would erase everything. Then Swordbone would truly belong to her son, Wu Di, and Wu Shuang would be completely worthless. There would be no need to pay any more attention to him. Now appeared Yuqi Mingfeng, but there was a murderous intent in her heart. Although the sword bones could be stolen, the traces couldn't be erased. If discovered, it would be troublesome. She wasn't worried about someone standing up for Wu Shuang, but rather concerned about bringing disgrace to her son. Wu Di was everything to her. He was her proudest son. She couldn't let her son's reputation be tarnished because of a useless person. Hold him back. I've arranged for someone to go. Chun Qingxuan's surface was calm, but privately, she had already arranged for someone to intercept Wu Shuang. At the same time, she was also surprised why Jian Wushuang recovered so quickly and even managed to kill a myriad forms realm cultivator. Although the strength of the two myriad forms cultivators she sent over was weak. But Wu Shuang was only a prenatal realm cultivator. Even if she gave him treasures that could help him break through to the Foundation Establishment realm, he shouldn't be this powerful. Little did she know Wu Shuang had died 3 days ago. The current Wu Shuang was no longer the Wu Shuang of the past. Although she took away Wu Shuang's swordbone, she also added a Jian character to Wu Shuang's name. As for Jian Wushuang on the other side, killing a mortal at will was nothing out of the ordinary for him. It was the triangular-eyed man who kept yelling and annoying him. He could clearly feel the friendly karma emanating from the central hall of the Wu family. There was no time to entangle with these small fries. The moment he moved to confront another myriad forms cultivator, Jian Wushuang couldn't be bothered. Instead, he just left. At that moment, a white-clad youth, accompanied by dozens of people, flew over from the sky. The newcomer was familiar to Jian Wushuang, based on his memory's description. The relationship between him and the white-clad youth before him was extraordinary. Like him, they were both descendants of the Wu family. However, this white-clad youth was the legitimate descendant of the third branch. He was Wu Qiong's second son, Wu Liang. In terms of age, Jian Wushuang still had to call him elder cousin. But this elder cousin had given him a hard time more than once. He had even humiliated him in the past. Seeing Jian Wushuang approaching, Wu Liang tilted his head up, not bothering to look at his cousin properly. A waste. There was no respect for him anywhere, even though they were blood relatives. Even Jian Wushuang himself thought there was nothing wrong with the other. Usually, wastes were just ignored. But to even bother with a waste like him, then what's the difference between this person and a waste? The key was that the original Wushuang was not a waste at all, but a future ultimate sword Dao expert. Killing a servant privately is a serious crime. Take him down, Wu Liang ordered his subordinates coldly. In his eyes, this cousin of his was not even comparable to a family servant. Of course, there were also his father's instructions in this matter. Although he didn't know why Wu Shuang was to be detained, he couldn't be bothered to ask. Dozens of myriad forms cultivators, led by a nascent soul stage cultivator, were present. Jian Wushuang's current strength was simply not a match. Moreover, Wu Liang had been born for thousands of years and had reached the Mahayana stage. In this situation, defeat was inevitable. Jian Wushuang, without any cards left to play, relied solely on the power of his soul. Just as these people closed in around him, a powerful wave of thought power surged suddenly, freezing everyone in place. Wu Liang's expression turned to astonishment as he stared at Jian Wushuang, incredulously asking, "How is this possible? How could a waste like you possess such strength?" Strength? Jian Wushuang looked at him as if he were a mere ant. Although the Wu family's strength in Yu Kingdom was considerable, ranking among the top 10 families, in his eyes, they were too weak. Even when he was a Dao Lord, he could take on the entire Wu family alone. The outward release of soul power immediately caught the attention of the strong within the Wu family. In a secluded place, an old man suddenly opened his eyes, shock evident in them. What a powerful soul force! At the same time, within the heart of the family, some of the secluded family elites also emerged. The sudden appearance of this mysterious soul force within the family was a significant matter. The third son of the family, Wu Qiong, who had been in the guest hall, also sensed it, his expression changing instantly. Compared to the matter with Chen Qingxian, this was more important. Yuqi Mingfeng, we might need to postpone the matter with Wu Shuang. Wu Qiong's expression changed, leaving behind only a spiritual avatar. His true body rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Chen Qingxian, being only at the Immortal cultivation realm, couldn't sense the soul power at all. Naturally, she knew nothing about it. Instead, she smiled as she looked at the handsome young man before him, but harbored different thoughts in her heart. Although Yuqi Mingfeng was also at the Immortal cultivation realm, his strength had already reached the limit of the Dao Lord realm. He was a genius of the Mingjiao, his strength not inferior to that of an emperor. Naturally, he too felt the soul power. Although the soul power was unfamiliar, it was connected by karma. It was related to his sister. Is that the nephew he had never met? That took him by surprise. I think there's no need to wait any longer. Yuqi Mingfeng acted directly. He had already noticed that Wu Qiong had only left behind an avatar. Wu Qiong couldn't stop him at all. Wu Qiong's face changed drastically, angrily saying, "How dare you?" But Yuchi Mingfeng just sneered. "What's there to fear?" He was the pride of Mingjiao. Although the Wu family was backed by the seven-star sect's Qingyun subsect, they were nothing more than dogs. Even if they were from the Qingyun sect, so what? He wasn't afraid. Moreover, he wasn't a fool. These people were making things difficult for him for the sake of their nephew. There must be something they didn't want him to know. He certainly wouldn't let go. Jian Wushuang's soul power spread outward. Even he didn't know it would cause such a big disturbance. For a moment, he felt several powerful auras soaring into the sky. This is bad, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He suddenly realized that this place was primarily based on divine power. Soul power was different from this place. Although his soul realm was only at the level of an emperor, because of the nourishment of the origin source, his soul realm had long surpassed that of an emperor, even stronger than the realm of tribulation. He had reached the level of the universe master. This attracted the attention of countless people. But now there was no other way. They could only hope for the arrival of the powerful individual whose fate was intertwined with theirs. He only needed a trace of the origin source within the other person to restore himself to his peak. Although the strong individuals in this spacetime were mainly practitioners of the divine power origin source, they were also origin sources, capable of restoring him to his peak. Without strength, he felt insecure in everything he did. Soon enough, several emperors descended. "What has happened here, Wu Liang?" The elder of the family was the first to speak. The white-browed old man stared intently at Jian Wushuang. He could sense the mysterious soul power emanating from the young man before him. Seeing so many powerful figures descending, Wu Liang was also taken aback. But he quickly reacted and hurriedly explained Jian Wushuang's situation. The white-browed elder revealed a strange expression. He was unaware of Jian Wushuang's situation. He was just a distant relative within the family. Although he was also a disciple of their third branch, the Wu family had 9 branches, each with tens of thousands of disciples. It was impossible to know them all. Moreover, he was just a young disciple who had been born only a few decades ago. For immortals and above, one cultivation session could span thousands or even millions of years. It was normal not to be aware. After learning that he was a member of their family, these people breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that he was one of their own. If he were an outsider, they would have to treat him cautiously. After the white-browed elder breathed a sigh of relief, he smiled at Jian Wushuang and asked, "Are you the reincarnated one?" To possess such powerful soul strength at just a few decades old. He could only think of it as a reincarnation. But his guess wasn't far off. Jian Wushuang indeed was a reincarnation. Jian Wushuang didn't hide it either, as it held no meaning, so he simply nodded. It's best this way. With everything clarified, if the other party cooperated, he could recover his peak faster. Yet, he was somewhat worried about what would happen if these people decided to attack him. "I wonder about your identity in your past life," the elder asked cautiously. Jian Wushuang replied, "I am not from the ancient Wood continent." This wasn't a lie either. He truly wasn't one of the powerful beings on the ancient Wood continent, nor did he belong to this spacetime. "Oh, I see." There was a hint of curiosity in the elder's eyes. Simultaneously, he conveyed this information to the true powerhouses within the clan. After the reincarnation of a powerful individual, he descended upon their Wu family. It was uncertain whether it was good or bad. The benefits were evident. Having the bloodline of their Wu family meant having profound karma. In the future, upon reaching the pinnacle once again, he wouldn't forget the Wu family. It was considered a good thing. However, there were drawbacks. The uncertainty about the person he was before reincarnation lingered. What if he was a powerful cultivator of the demonic path? How would he harm the Wu family? Moreover, lacking any background information, they were unaware of his strength or weaknesses. This matter couldn't be decided by him alone, a mere elder of the third branch. They needed to consult the true powerhouses within the family. Upon hearing about this matter, Wu Qiong, who rushed over, had a drastic change in expression. He knew about the deeds of Chen Qingxian. It was probably impossible to conceal it now. Furthermore, as for Yuchi Mingfeng, his avatar couldn't him and was already charging towards them. Wu Qiong, is this true? The elder by Mei, frowned slightly upon hearing Wu Qiong's message. The matter regarding Jian Wushuang had already been exposed. Elder by Mei was first amazed, then filled with regret. But upon hearing that Jian Wushuang's soul was transplanted into Wu Di, he felt relieved. At least it remained within the family and wasn't a boon to outsiders. However, in doing so, they would offend the reincarnated individual before them. Not much of a loss compared to the sword bone, but there's something that Elder by Mei finds puzzling. Why transplant it to Wu Di instead of Wu Qiong's eldest son or second son, Wu Liang? There must be some hidden reason behind this. But that's not important now. What matters is how to deal with Wu Shuang. Such a big event has occurred. In the city below the mountain, Wu Yong, Wu Shuang's biological father, had already been brought over. My son. Turns out you're a reincarnate, Wu Yong exclaimed in surprise at first. Then his face lit up with joy. Although his strength is mediocre, he understands reincarnation. Those who can reincarnate are all great beings, maybe even supreme experts. With this, he has another powerful backing. And it's his own biological son, a powerful being like an emperor. As for his other son, Wu Di, although talented, he has yet to fully grow. Wu Shuang, as a reincarnate, is different. He can quickly recover his peak. Then he will be a great support. The eldest son is a reincarnate, a great being like an emperor. The second son possesses the sword eye and, unknown to him, the Jian Gu, making him even more qualified. What virtues and merits did Wu Yong have in his past life to have such two proud sons in this life? Wu Qiong glanced at his incompetent younger brother, his face somewhat embarrassed. But deep down he sneered. As a reincarnate, even if he is Wu Yong's son, he probably won't receive much favor due to past events. As for the second son, Wu Di, that's even more intriguing. And because of the matter of the sword bone, he probably holds a grudge, and it's already generous if he doesn't seek revenge on them. Elder by Mei also understands this point. Now there had to be a decision. Wu Shuang was a reincarnated powerhouse, and without discussing the future, he would soon grow into a superpower whose strength rivaled his own, even potentially become a supreme peak expert. And Wu Di, possessing absolute talent, would become an emperor in the future, perhaps even reaching the supreme peak. Both of these individuals were the hope of their respective families. Whether to give up or not, that was the question. If one must truly give up, it would be Wu Shuang. After all, he was a reincarnated being. Wu Di, on the other hand, was a true scion of the Wu family, a direct descendant of the family. The true powerhouse of the clan soon arrived at the scene. Clad in simple black robes with a cold demeanor, his presence exuded absolute pressure. In the Wu family, an emperor might be considered high-ranking. But for one to reach supreme peak, they were leaders of a faction. However, within the clan, those who had reached the Tribulation Realm were the backbone of the entire family and clan. They were also the capital upon which they stood in the Yu Kingdom. And this black-robed powerhouse was one such Tribulation Realm expert. A wandering Tribulation Realm expert, unable to transcend the three Tribulation Realm. Even so, this individual's strength was second only to Gu Sha that Jian Wushuang had once slain. His divine body count was definitely above 100,000-fold. He was a bona fide powerhouse among divine body cultivators. His arrival instantly suppressed the formidable soul power emanating from Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's expression turned somewhat awkward. The pressure emanating from the other party was quite intense. It was likely unfavorable for him. "I wonder what your name is, sir?" the old man in black robes asked. Jian Wushuang replied calmly. Jian Wushuang. At this moment, Yuchi Mingfeng also arrived. He noticed the gathering of so many strong individuals and felt that something was amiss. But Jian Wushuang felt a flicker of joy within him. The powerful individual with whom he shared karma seemed to be among the present. Immediately, he directly conveyed his message to the other party, revealing his identity. And he recounted his encounter. He pretended to be a reincarnation, which was true, But after all, he was the other party's nephew. He merely pretended to have awakened memories of his past life. The other party would still cherish this kinship. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's transmission, Yuqi Mingfeng also felt amazed. He never expected his nephew to be a reincarnation. There was also some sense of loss. His only relative turned out to be a reincarnated powerful being. Although it was true in terms of bloodline, there were still some differences. But since his help was needed, he wouldn't decline. At present, the people of the Wu family probably wouldn't let Jian Wushuang leave, and might even resort to killing him. Those unrelated, you may withdraw. The figure in black robes gestured, signaling for them to leave. What was to come next would be detrimental to the family if it spread. Naturally, they didn't want those youngsters to know. Only Wu Qiong, Wu Yong, and Elder Bai Mei remained, knowing about the matter. The elder in black robes turned to Yuqi Mingfeng and said, "People of Mingjiao, this matter has nothing to do with you. You may leave." With no room for negotiation, he directly waved his hand, tearing through the space, intending to teleport Yuqi Mingfeng away. However, Jian Wushuang stepped forward at this moment, directly intercepting the elder. "Elder, according to the seniority of this era, I should address you as ancestor. If there's anything, why not just say it directly? There's no need for such a fuss." Jian Wushuang looked up at the elder in black robes. Indeed, he had the blood of the Wu family flowing in his veins, although it had only been 3 days since his reincarnation. Yet he possessed the body of Wu Shuang. The only difference was the soul. Seeing this, the elder's gaze shifted. Meanwhile, Yuqi Mingfeng condensed a mass of divine power, walked to Jian Wushuang's side, patted his shoulder, and transmitted the divine power into Jian Wushuang's body. "Wu Shuang is right. If the Wu family finds it hard to accept, I'll take him away," Yuqi Mingfeng said firmly. He had already communicated with the strong figures of nearby Mingjiao. Present, things might not be so simple. The other party was a tribulation realm powerhouse. He was just an immortal realm cultivator. Even if he was a genius capable of matching the emperor, it wasn't quite enough. Seeing this, the elder suppressed the killing intent in his heart and said calmly, "Since that's the case, let's go to the ancestral hall." He was a tribulation realm powerhouse, so even if an immortal was here, it wouldn't matter much. At worst, they could all be killed together. The ancestral hall, the core of the Wu family. The elder in black robes, Wu Changqing, was the grand elder of the Wu family. He was considered the second most important figure in the Wu family. His strength ranked in the top 3. The first in strength was naturally the ancestor who founded the Wu family. That elder of the Wu family who secluded himself in the sword mound all year round. However, for such trivial matters, that elder wouldn't appear. Only when a new tribulation realm expert emerged in the clan would that elder make an appearance. As for the clan's patriarch, he is currently not in the Wu family. That's why this time Wu Changqing was sent out. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but feel curious. How many tribulation realm experts does the Wu family really have? Originally thought the Wu family had at most one Supreme Peak expert. Never expected there would actually be tribulation realm experts, and it seems there's more than one. It's likely that all 10 major families of Yu Kingdom have tribulation realm experts. According to the most memorable names in memory, 7-Star Sect, Qingyun Sect, and Yu Kingdom. This side of spacetime is far stronger than he imagined. Inside the clan hall, Chen Qingxian and Wu Di were brought in by someone. They were kneeling in the hall at this moment. Jian Wushuang, however, sat on the left side of Wu Changqing, the elder of the Wu family, as if he were a guest. An elder Bai Mei from the third branch sat on the right side. As for Wu Qiong and Wu Yong, they didn't even have the qualification to sit. They just stood there. Wu Yong was not familiar with the situation. At this moment he felt anxious. Even though he was somewhat incompetent, he could tell that today's matter was not simple. "Chen Qingxian, do you acknowledge your guilt?" The elder with white eyebrows snapped. Chen Qingxian, who was kneeling on the ground, knew that she couldn't hide it any longer today, so she simply confessed everything. "Elder, everything was done by me. It has nothing to do with my son. Chen Qingxian buried her head between her knees. Wu Di turned to look at his mother, his expression complex. Chen Qingxian didn't know that Wu Shuang was a reincarnation, but seeing Jian Wushuang sitting beside the patriarch of the clan, she realized that things were probably not simple. Today, she might face a catastrophe. At this moment, Wu Chongqing slowly picked up the teacup, took a sip of tea and said calmly, "In that case, Wu Qiong will take her down and escort her to the enforcement hall." The Wu family, as a large clan, was no less than a divine kingdom, and the rules of the clan were naturally intact. What needed to be done would be done. It was considered fair. Upon hearing that she was to be taken to the enforcement hall, Chen Qingshuan's face showed fear. If she entered the enforcement hall, she would really be finished. But for the sake of her son, she had no choice. Upon hearing this, Wu Yong angrily exclaimed, "You vile woman! How could you harm my son like this?" Taking the sword bone from Wu Shuang and transplanting it to Wu Di. This matter was too vicious. Finally, Chen Qingxian glanced at her son, and as she stared at Wu Di, she shook her head. She stood up, bowed to the several elders, and looked at Jian Wushuang, her eyes still filled with disdain and arrogance. Jian Wushuang gripped the armrest of the chair, but inside him, there appeared a singularity. This singularity was expanding continuously. It was a starry sky, his origin source and the freedom he had obtained. Inside the origin source space, there were many treasures of his, as well as his complete physical and divine body. Now he could restore himself to his peak at any time. His confidence surged. "Wait!" Chen Qingxian, who was about to leave, was halted. Seeing Jian Wushuang blocking the way, Wu Chongqing furrowed his brows slightly, looking at Jian Wushuang and said, "Jian Wushuang, this matter concerns the Wu family. She's surnamed Chen." Jian Wushuang stood up slowly, replying calmly. The next moment, his physical body began to transform in front of everyone. A figure with white hair and a slender figure appeared before them. As his true self appeared, the ancestral figure of the Wu family's Sword Tomb Mountain also opened his eyes at the same time. Carrying the Jueyun sword, Jian Wushuang was fully restored. "Since I have reincarnated, I must fulfill Wu Shuang's duties and understand his karma." Jian Wushuang's tone was indifferent but firm, even with a formidable expert of the tribulation realm sitting beside him. Wu Chongqing and Elder Bai Mei were astonished. They were aware of reincarnation, but they had never heard of reincarnation accompanied by the transfer of the physical body. And the recovery was too quick. The current Jian Wushuang was even difficult for Wu Chongqing to fully understand. Tribulation realm. Wu Chongqing stood up instantly. He hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to be a tribulation realm expert. With his insight unable to fully grasp Jian Wushuang's depth, he naturally thought Jian Wushuang was a tribulation realm expert. Upon hearing the term tribulation realm, both the elder Bai Mei and Wu Qiong were stunned. Both of them were emperors and naturally knew the terror of the tribulation realm. Currently, there were only 5 people in the tribulation realm in the entire Wu family. 2 of them were at 1 tribulation, 2 at the 2 turbulation realm, and 1 3 tribulation ancestral figure. As the pride of Mingjiao, Yuqi Mingfeng naturally understood the might of the tribulation realm and was also greatly surprised. What? Chen Qingxian was somewhat puzzled. As a mortal being, she naturally didn't understand the power of tribulation realms. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate. A burst of light erupted between his fingers, directly killing Chen Qingxian. He understood Wu Shuang's karma. At the same time, a hand reached out from the void and grabbed Wu Di directly in front of him. Wu Chongqing wanted to intervene, but he found himself inferior to Jian Wushuang in spatial realms. The strong of this spacetime relied mainly on divine power. Even though he had reached the tribulation realm, he wasn't particularly proficient in spatial matters and naturally couldn't stop Jian Wushuang. "Jian Wushuang, you're going too far. What Chen Qingxian did has nothing to do with this child," Wu Chongqing advised. After all, Wu Di was in Jian Wushuang's hands now. It seemed that Jian Wushuang had no sentiment towards their Wu family anymore. He acted directly without any tact. Wu Di was important to the Wu family. Having the sword eye, he was destined to become an emperor, and becoming a supreme peak figure wouldn't be difficult. Plus, with the current sword bone, his future achievements would be extraordinary. An ultimate emperor or even the Tribulation realm. That was the Tribulation realm of ultimate divine power. Even the ancestors would highly regard it. He couldn't be killed by Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang pinched Wu Di's neck and turned to Wu Chongqing, saying coldly, "Indeed, it has nothing to do with him, but that piece of sword bone must be taken back. It doesn't belong to him." After saying that, he directly took out the stolen sword bone from Wu Di's body through his flesh. After taking it out, Jian Wushuang handed it to Yuqi Mingfeng behind him. "Make a grave for Wu Shuang. He's dead." It was a kind of consideration. It was also a relief. Such talent coming to the Wu family was unfortunate. Yuqi Mingfeng's eyes turned red as he took the sword bone. His gaze filled with endless anger as he looked at Wu Di in Jian Wushuang's hand and the dead Chen Qingxian. Snap! Jian Wushuang casually threw Wu Di aside, not really killing him. He could sense that there was no real enmity from the other side towards him. But it wasn't good to say now. He killed Chen Qingxian, and Wu Di probably wished he could kill him right now. Unfortunately, he didn't have that strength. Wu Yong was completely shocked by everything he saw. His wife died instantly in front of him, and his son's sword bone was taken back by Jian Wushuang. For a moment, it was hard to accept. However, Wu Qiong was the first to lift Wu Di from the ground. There was tenderness in his eyes, not because of Chen Qingxian, but because of Wu Di now. Jian Wushuang, upon seeing this, paid no heed. He could discern that Wu Di harbored the bloodline of Wu Qiong within him. Perhaps Wu Yong was still unaware that his own elder brother had betrayed him. Back when the sword bone was seized, it was likely also because of Wu Qiong. And Chen Qingxuan's knowledge of the probability of the sword bone residing within him was also due to Wu Qiong. Following this line of reasoning, it seemed likely that Wu Qiong was the true culprit behind the scenes. However, Chen Qingxian proved to be tough enough, bearing the burden of all these matters. Upon witnessing this scene, Wu Chongqing also grasped the situation. The fury in his heart surged to its peak at this moment. "Get out!" Wu Chongqing erupted with a formidable divine power, directly enveloping Wu Qiong and Wu Di, the father and son, and expelled them from the ancestral hall. "He cannot leave." Jian Wushuang intervened with his signature move, tearing through space to intercept Wu Qiong. Since Wu Qiong was the true culprit, he couldn't be let off easily. Wu Chongqing was thoroughly enraged, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Although Jian Wushuang's strength was somewhat peculiar, his mastery of space exceeded even Wu Chongqing's. But when it came to divine power, he was inferior. Thus, Wu Chongqing had confidence. "Jian Wushuang, don't go too far. This is the Wu family." However, Jian Wushuang shook his head and declared, "Wu Qiong must die." But this time, whether it was for the sake of prestige or for the descendants of the Wu family, Wu Chongqing directly took action. His divine body erupted instantaneously, surpassing 100,000-fold. Jian Wushuang felt this surge of power and furrowed his brows slightly. "With just this level of strength, you can't stop me." Jian Wushuang's beast god power erupted suddenly, also surpassing 100,000-fold. Now, when he unleashed even a fraction of his beast god power, it could amplify his divine body to 100,000-fold. Naturally, he was not inferior to his opponent. Now he was the identity of this temporal river, naturally needing to use divine power. Unless absolutely necessary, he couldn't resort to the power of the origin source. Revealing such strength would raise suspicions. The voice of the celestial maiden upon entering this spacetime still echoed fresh in his memory. This was the other party's Tao arena. 9 heavens and 10 earths, an entirely formidable spacetime, was unexpectedly the other party's Tao arena. Just how strong was the other party? He dared not imagine. This figure was much more powerful than Qixin. While using divine power to protect Yuqi Mingfeng, he confronted Wu Chongqing. "Chongqing, you are no match for him," a solemn voice echoed. Jian Wushuang and Wu Chongqing both turned their gazes towards the entrance of the clan hall. An elderly with white hair and a youthful face stood there, holding a sword upside down, his presence akin to a sword, suppressing the area. This was indeed the strongest individual of the Wu clan. Elder Ancestor. Wu Chongqing retracted his aura and respectfully saluted. The Wu clan Elder Ancestor walked over slowly, devoid of any killing intent. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang also restrained his own aura. Wu clan Wu Li. Ancient Moon Jian Wushuang. Both of them announced their names simultaneously. The word, Ancient Moon, represented the Ancient Moon spacetime. As long as one was a strong individual of the Ancient Moon spacetime, they could utter the word, Ancient Moon. In the eyes of Wu Li, this was also perhaps why Jian Wushuang didn't want to reveal his identity. However, Jian Wushuang sneered inwardly. The name of this Wu clan elder ancestor was quite similar to the Wu clan, quite disrespectful one. Wu Li spoke up, "Dao friend, care to chat?" Jian Wushuang nodded, replying, "Let's chat." He could sense the sincerity in the other's words. Old ancestor. Wu Chongqing was somewhat puzzled. Wu Li, however, muttered in a low voice, "This is none of your business. Step aside." Despite his grievances, Wu Chongqing held deep respect for the old ancestor and dared not disobey, so he could only leave. With that, there were only 3 people left in the grand hall, and also Ancient Moon, who was suppressed on the side. Jian Wushuang treated this causality, which was kind-hearted, with great courtesy. Wu Li also politely said to Yuqi Mingfeng, "Friend from the Mingjiao sect, please feel free to sit. It's impolite of my Wu family." This puzzled Wuxia Mingfeng. If Jian Wushuang was polite, it was understandable, but why was he so polite to him? Although he was the pride of the Mingjiao, he was just an immortal realm cultivator after all. What would make the other party so polite to him? Could it be because of Jian Wushuang? Thinking of this, he understood. Strength was paramount. Being able to make the old ancestor of the Wu family say that Wu Chongqing was not as good as Jian Wushuang meant that the strength of this cheap nephew of his was on the same level as the old ancestor of the Wu family, or even stronger. After exchanging pleasantries, Jian Wushuang and Wu Li sat on either side of the main seat. There was no designated main seat, indicating equal treatment. Jian Wushuang was also curious whether the other party was being overly polite. What was the purpose? "Dao friend, feel free to speak." Having just entered this spacetime, he was not very clear about many things. Naturally, he didn't want to say much and preferred to let the other party speak. Otherwise, he might be seen as knowing nothing and arouse suspicion. Wu Li smiled and said, "Dao friend Jian Wushuang, since you're a straightforward person, I'll be direct too. Dao friend, do you know what this is?" Wu Li produced a jade sword. There were strange patterns on the top, and it was entirely green. Jian Wushuang examined it carefully. Although it was exquisitely crafted, it didn't seem particularly special. Could only be said to be a good item, not even considered a treasure. "This is." Jian Wushuang looked at Wu Li in confusion. Wu Li awkwardly smiled and said, "Dao friend, since we're being open with each other, there's no need to be so formal." It was evident he didn't believe Jian Wushuang didn't recognize the object. But Jian Wushuang truly had no idea. This jade sword didn't seem to have any connection to him. The only link could be his surname, Jian. "I would like my friend to enlighten me," Jian Wushuang said sincerely. He could tell the other party wasn't joking. This jade sword probably had a special purpose and was related to him. But he hadn't used a sword here. The fact that the jade sword was related to him could probably be because of something on him, like the Jueyun sword. Wu Li also paused, realizing Jian Wushuang really seemed to know nothing. Dao friend really doesn't recognize this item. He still found it hard to believe, while glancing at the Jueyun sword behind Jian Wushuang. The aura above it he was extremely familiar with. Jian Wushuang still shook his head. Seeing this, Wu Li was certain Jian Wushuang truly didn't know. He decided to directly explain the matter of the jade sword. The more Jian Wushuang listened, the more incredulous he felt. It wasn't the jade sword itself that was unbelievable, but rather the fact that it was indeed related to the Jueyun sword and had been passed down for a long time. Ancient Wood Continent. It was named Ancient Wood because at the core of the continent, there stood an ancient willow that had endured for millennia. That was the core of the Ancient Wood continent. And it was also the core of the Ancient Wood sect, one of the 8 star sects. The structure of this spacetime mainly consisted of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. And the division of power had long been intertwined with the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Each of the 10 lands had an 8 star sect, existing as long as the heavens and earth. Then there were the 7 star sects like the Qingyun sect within the Yu Kingdom. But the 7 star sects were all established later. The 8 star sects inherited the true masters of the ancient moon spacetime, the only 9 star sect being the ancient moon sect. Amongst the 9 star sects, only the ancient moon sect truly reigned supreme. With some insights gleaned from Wu Li's words, Jian Wushuang came to understand the hierarchy of these sections. The 7 star sects seemed more like subsidiaries of the 8 star sects, and the 8 star sects were in turn subservient to the ancient moon sect. It was a hierarchical structure that extended downward. In reality, the influence throughout the ancient moon spacetime was unified. There was only one 9 star sect, the ancient moon sect. The 8 star sects, however, numbered 19 in total, each representing the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Then came the 7 star sects. To establish one, it required a 7 tribulation realm powerhouse. This revelation greatly shocked Jian Wushuang. In the former Moro spacetime, there was only Qishan, a 7 tribulation realm powerhouse. But in the ancient moon spacetime, were 7 tribulation realm experts so common? In Yu Kingdom alone, there was already a 7 star sect. However, as he delved deeper into understanding the ancient moon spacetime, he realized it wasn't that the ancient moon spacetime was exceptionally powerful. It was just that this spacetime had existed for an incredibly long time. If the former Moro spacetime had experienced 5 epochs, then the ancient moon spacetime had endured at least billions of epochs. No wonder so many powerhouses had emerged. Yet, over the years, the number of surviving 7 tribulation realm experts had dwindled significantly. Most were scattered remnants after failed tribulations. Jian Wushuang had long known that those at the tribulation realm were peculiar. Once they failed in their tribulation, the weaker ones perished directly. Some, known for their renown, severed their own tribulations, forever remaining trapped within a certain tribulation. For those confident in themselves, they would cross the tribulation. If they fail, they either perish or, if their strength is formidable, they can transform into wandering tribulation realm cultivators. With this in mind, Jian Wushuang thought of Qishan Temple. With Qishan's strength at the half-step 8 tribulation realm, even if he failed the tribulation, he should have become one of the strong ones amidst scattered and wandering tribulations. How did he end up perishing? However, now in the ancient moon spacetime, he no longer thought about Moro spacetime. Now he was more interested in what Wu Li said. According to Wu Li, his Juyun sword and the jade sword on him were master and servant. When his true self appeared, the jade sword had undergone changes, leading him here. Jian Wushuang drew the Juyun sword and handed it to Wu Li. Wu Li also handed the jade sword to Jian Wushuang. The two observed simultaneously. Only when holding the jade sword did Jian Wushuang truly feel that it contained a complete divine power origin source. It also contained the power of life. Was this refined by divine wood? Jian Wushuang finally recognized the material of the jade sword. If it weren't for the origin source, he wouldn't have been able to tell at all. While praising the Juyun sword, Wu Li smiled knowingly when Jian Wushuang discovered the jade sword's uniqueness and said, "Dao friend, your insight is truly extraordinary." It took this old man several years to realize the connection between the jade sword and divine wood. Jian Wushuang didn't care about such boasting. What he was more curious about now was why these two were connected. The origin source within this jade sword was very similar to that of the Juyun sword. Or rather, it was very similar to the Juyun sword he had nurtured. Both contained the power of life. The connection between the two lay in the power of life. But he clearly came from a distant branch spacetime in the starry sky. This ancient moon spacetime was probably one of the 9 core spacetimes in the starry sky. How could there be a connection across such a distance? Although curious, Jian Wushuang did not expose the life power within his body. He didn't plan to reveal it later either, because this ability is probably related to the ancient Wood sect. That's an 8-star sect, a superpower with experts in the 8th Tribulation realm, stronger even than the Qixin Temple, although there are no experts in the 8th Tribulation realm in the current generation. But there are those who have failed in their tribulation in the 8th Tribulation realm. That alone surpasses the Qixin Temple, not to mention Jian Wushuang now, so he couldn't expose it. Otherwise, it would be inviting disaster. After playing with the Jade Sword for a while, Jian Wushuang returned it to Wu Li. However, the latter, caressing the Juyun sword, seemed reluctant, which amused him. Seeing him returning the Jade Sword, Wu Li felt embarrassed to continue watching, so he handed the Juyun sword to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang didn't put it into the scabbard on his back this time, but instead tucked it into his mustard seed. After all, the current Juyun sword contains secrets, and he didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. Moreover, even Wu Li could sense the uniqueness of the Juyun sword. Although he was only an expert in the 3 Tribulation realm, he had already mastered the universe, becoming a universe master. But such strength is only impressive in the Yu Kingdom. In the vast ancient Wood continent, it still falls short. After all, the top sects of the ancient Wood continent have experts in the 8th Tribulation realm. There are probably quite a few in the 7th Tribulation realm as well. The universe master at the 3 Tribulation realm wasn't much in the grand scheme of things. When faced with stronger beings at the Tribulation realm, it was likely they could easily discern the extraordinary nature of Juyun's sword at a glance. He had to refine the life force within the Juyun sword. He couldn't afford to be ostentatious. Dao friend, have you noticed the similarity between these two? Wu Li asked. Jian Wushuang nodded, seeing no reason to conceal anything. Indeed, the life power was the same. It was akin to the life force of plants and trees. In that case, I'll be straightforward. Wu Li cut to the chase this time. Jian Wushuang shared the same anticipation. Although the life power was special, it didn't warrant such treatment from Wu Li. Perhaps this jade sword held a purpose unknown to him. Before Wu Li spoke, he had already set up a barrier. Their conversation was completely inaudible to Yuqi Mingfeng. All he could see was the two of them sitting there, as if time had frozen. Wu Li's voice was barely audible, and his face trembled. Dao friend, do you know that the 1,000 willow at the center of the ancient Wood continent is actually the 10,000 willow? The treasure left by the celestial maiden who opened up the space-time in the beginning. Jian Wushuang abruptly stood up, furrowing his brow, unable to believe his ears. 10,000 willow. This reminded him of the forest of eternal secrets. At the same time, he understood why the life power within the Juyun sword was so similar to that within the Jade sword. His life power was comprehended from the origin source of all things. And within the origin source of all things, there also existed the origin of the forest of eternal secrets. No wonder the two are connected. Now he finally understood. Both are manifestations of plant life. That was the legendary 10,000 willow, a divine tree left by the celestial maiden, far more formidable than the forest of eternal secrets. If he could obtain it, not to mention breaking through the tribulation realm, even reaching the 7 tribulation realm wouldn't be an issue. A thought struck him, and he asked with some excitement, could it be related to the 10,000 willow? He found it hard to believe. If it were truly related, then this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Involving the 10,000 willows divine would, if word got out, even if they had 10 lives each, it wouldn't be enough to escape death. Wu Li was also quite frightened by this statement, and at the same time he reinforced the barrier. Fellow Taoist, you mustn't say such things. Wu Li shook his head, then continued, whether it's related to the divine tree or not, I don't know, but the ancient Wood sect has been searching for this object, and it holds great secrets within. According to Wu Li's words, although the 10,000 willows divine wood belongs to the ancient Wood sect, the other party cannot activate the divine tree. This jade sword is probably the key to activating the divine tree. Wu Li's words were obscure, but Jian Wushuang wasn't foolish. He could make connections. However, why would such an important matter be told to him, an outsider? Thinking this, Jian Wushuang had already begun to ponder the other party's intentions. Wu Li also noticed his doubts and hurriedly explained, "Dao friend, you are not a native of the ancient Wood continent, so you probably don't know that although the divine tree belongs to the ancient Wood sect, it doesn't necessarily have to be a disciple of the ancient Wood sect to activate it." Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang was somewhat surprised. The 10,000 Willow is also known as the Wanlu Divine Tree. In the Eternal Wood era on the ancient Wood continent, there appeared a master of Eternal Wood. He was also a powerhouse at the Sixth Tribulation Realm who used a sword. He once used a 3-foot wooden sword to activate the Wanlu Divine Tree, taking away a great opportunity from it, and achieved the strength of a 7 Tribulation Realm powerhouse. In the later stage, he soared to the sky, becoming a half-step 8 Tribulation Realm powerhouse. Originally a 6 Tribulation Realm powerhouse, it didn't sound like there were many breakthroughs. But how many 6 Tribulation Realm powerhouses could actually become a 7 Tribulation Realm powerhouse, let alone reaching the half-step 8 Tribulation Realm? Even if they failed the Tribulation, they could become wandering cultivators. Unfortunately, like Qixin, the other party also held a determination to die, unwilling to become wandering Tribulation powerhouses even if they died. Activate the Divine Tree. Jian Wushuang took a sharp breath, extremely excited. If this could be activated, his Tribulation opportunity would come. Not only could it help him break through, but he might also quickly become a super powerhouse in the Tribulation realm. Seeing Jian Wushuang's eager expression, Wu Li seized the opportunity and continued, "Dao friend, do you know where that Master of Eternal Wood came from?" "I don't know." Jian Wushuang naturally didn't know. Wu Li answered, "The Eternal Wood Master is from the Yu Kingdom, and the current sword mound is where he passed away. When the Eternal Wood Master failed the Tribulation and had only one breath left, he returned to his homeland and passed away on a bitter mountain." Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang was also very shocked. Doesn't this mean that Wu Li inherited the legacy of the Eternal Wood Master? A half-step 8 Tribulation Realm legacy. That was a power comparable to the Qixin Temple. Wu Li discerned Jian Wushuang's thoughts and shook his head with a bitter smile. Unfortunately, the Eternal Wood Master only left behind this jade sword, disappearing without leaving a trace of bones. Thinking about it, if Wu Li could have obtained the other party's inheritance, he wouldn't just be at the 3 Tribulation Realm like he is now. Even a pig could become a 5 Tribulation Realm powerhouse. Having heard so much, Jian Wushuang probably understood the other party's intentions. It seemed like they wanted to cooperate with him. He wanted to activate the Wanlu Divine Tree. Not to mention becoming a powerhouse like the Eternal Wood Master, at least there would be no problem for Wu Li to advance further. Jian Wushuang could tell that the other party was not just a Tribulation Realm powerhouse. They should have been suppressing their strength all along. They weren't confident about crossing the Tribulation. "I've said so much, I believe you should understand my intentions. Within the Wanlu Divine Tree lies the core inheritance and secrets of the ancient Wood continent. If you and I join forces and truly enter it, becoming the Eternal Wood Master and stepping into the 5 Tribulation Realm for a lifetime wouldn't be difficult. As the Eternal Wood Master, being at the half-step 8 Tribulation Realm indeed made one a renowned figure. Throughout the ancient Wood continent, there was only one 8 Tribulation Realm powerhouse, and they were a scattered and wandering Tribulation powerhouse, the ancestor of the ancient Wood sect. Having lived for who knows how many years, they never appeared. The former Eternal Wood Master was practically invincible in the ancient Wood continent. If one could successfully cross the Tribulation, they would probably be the only true 8th Tribulation Realm powerhouse in the ancient Wood continent. Although the ancient moon spacetime was one of the 9 cores, true 8 Tribulation Realms were still rare, with most being 8th Tribulation Realm powerhouses who had failed their Tribulation. This temptation was too great. The other party was clearly using the matter of the Eternal Wood Master to tempt him. But right now he was indeed falling for it. If he wanted to quickly enhance his strength currently, there was only this one path. He entered the ancient moon spacetime with the goal of becoming a super powerhouse within the Tribulation Realm, returning to the Qixin Temple to deal with the true monarchs of the original universe, and Mieshang. Mieshang was his number 1 enemy. Only one of them could survive. He had a premonition that even if he continued hiding in the ancient moon spacetime, Mieshang would eventually come looking for him. The other party had been laying out plans since the Moro spacetime. They wouldn't just give up like this. In order to break through, he could only rapidly improve his strength. Before the fall of the Qixin Temple, he needed to deal with Mieshang. Mieshang was a half-step 7 Tribulation Realm powerhouse, requiring at least the strength of 6 Tribulation Realm to return. But even in the ancient moon spacetime, it was extremely difficult to become a 6 Tribulation Realm expert. Any emperor, even a 5 Tribulations Realm powerhouse, couldn't guarantee becoming a 6 Tribulation Realm expert. Jian Wushuang, even with confidence, didn't have enough time to slowly advance. Now was an excellent opportunity. Could allow him to rapidly break through. Although he didn't know what secrets lay within the Wanlu divine tree, or what opportunities he could obtain. But as long as he could improve quickly, he wanted to give it a try. This time, luck was on his side. He hadn't expected to encounter such a thing just after crossing over. If it weren't for Wu Li's greed, he probably wouldn't have told him, and might even have killed him to seize the treasures. Fortunately, his strength was enough to deter the other party. Otherwise, a bitter battle would be inevitable. Wu Li was the universe master. If he returned to his own Dao arena, Jian Wushuang would have no way to deal with him. Conversely, if Wu Li left his Dao arena, Jian Wushuang would have no way to deal with him. So the two could be frank with each other. Only in this way could they cooperate and win together. Cooperate. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment. Although he was moved, he couldn't blindly trust the other's words. Wu Li also understood the gravity of the situation and had a plan in mind long ago. He revealed all the arrangements he had made. Although my position in the Qingyun sect is not top-notch, it's still high-ranking. Moreover, I have a mistress in the ancient Wood sect. Her strength may not be as good as mine, but her background is strong. She's the elder sister of the contemporary holy maiden of the ancient Wood sect. As long as you enter the Qingyun sect and become a core member, you'll be able to participate in Saint Gathering of the ancient Wood continent, and then you'll have the chance to encounter the Wanlu divine tree. The meaning was simple. He would first enter Qingyun sect and then, leveraging its background, plan for future participation in the Saint Gathering. Then, during the Saint Gathering, discreetly, he would enter and activate the divine wood. It sounded simple enough, but in reality it was far from easy. The crux was that he was currently only an emperor. Yet, the other party mistook him for a Triabulation Realm expert. Seeing the other's sincerity, Jian Wushuang spoke frankly, revealing his true status as merely an emperor. "Are you the emperor?" With a sudden movement, Wu Li stood up, his eyes almost bulging out of their sockets. Though he had seen much in his lifetime, he still took a moment to compose himself. Jian Wushuang, seeing the astonishment on the other's face, felt somewhat perplexed. In the Moro spacetime, figures like Emperor Juyun could appear. In such a vast ancient temporal river, it wouldn't be surprising to encounter several extraordinary emperors. Dao friend Wushuang, don't try to deceive this old man. If you are truly an emperor, how could you master spatial manipulation so proficiently? Wu Li asked with skepticism. With a mere gesture, Jian Wushuang pointed out a black hole. Then, the black hole disintegrated, transforming into a secret realm. His current realm was very close to the Mahayana of the universe. A perfect universe with myriad black holes. Within Jian Wushuang's spatial origin source, half had already been filled. If it were an ordinary universe master facing Wu Li, even though the latter was a universe master, he would control less than 3,000 black holes. However, each black hole contained divine power. Though different from pure origin source, it wasn't far off. Jian Wushuang's spatial realm was roughly twice as powerful as his opponent's. This was what astonished Wu Li. However, it also had a great deal to do with combat prowess. The strength demonstrated by Jian Wushuang was no weaker than that of a 3 Tribulation Realm. Although the ancient temporal river was vast, there were indeed few who could rival the universe masters at the highest level. Countless epochs had passed, and now there were only 1 or 2 extraordinary emperors left. Wu Li's eyelids trembled, unable to shake off his amazement, and he exclaimed, The rumors are indeed true. Extraordinary emperors can indeed match the masters of the universe. Rumors. Jian Wushuang was surprised. In such a vast temporal river, there should be many who are stronger than me. Hearing that someone might be stronger than him, Wu Li quickly shook his head, resolutely stating, "Impossible. The strongest extraordinary emperor today, I have heard of him. He is a high priest of the Black Heaven, has been alive longer than I have, and is already at the 5 tribulation realm but still at the peak. Rumor has it that he cultivated some kind of secret technique that requires the Mahayana of secrets to break through. However, his strength is not as terrifying as yours. A friend of mine has seen him before. His realm is inferior to yours, though his combat prowess is unknown. Is his realm not as high as mine? Then his combat prowess must be lacking." Now Jian Wushuang felt that his own cultivation realm was somewhat low, almost mismatched with his strength. Since the successful Dao merge, it seemed like he had never fully unleashed his battle strength. He hadn't even deployed the One Thought universe. Although the Starry Sky Chronicles was his strongest trump card, he had used it against Mieshang's avatars. But without the blessing of the One Thought universe, in his view, it was far from reaching its peak. If Wu Li knew his thoughts, he would probably go crazy. Forget about the Emperor. Even if it were a second Tribulation Realm expert, with his strength and potential, they would laugh in their sleep. It seemed that only Jian Wushuang himself was somewhat dissatisfied with his current strength. If he truly reached the pinnacle, Jian Wushuang was confident that he could kill the Universe Master, even when he was only at the Emperor level. Even within the opponent's universe, he had great confidence. The opponent had an origin source universe. He had the One Thought universe. And it was also a mobile Dao arena, which was the most terrifying method. The most perfect universe with myriad black holes. Although Jian Wushuang still had a long way to go, as long as he had sufficient treasures and opportunities, he could quickly reach that realm. What about the ancient Moon sect? Jian Wushuang suddenly remembered that 9-star sect. 8-star sects had produced 2 Tribulation Realm experts before. Even if there were no true 2 Tribulation Realm experts now, there were probably scattered 2 Tribulation Strength experts. So what about the 9-star Ancient Moon sect? These were the most powerful forces in the Ancient Moon spacetime. How strong would their strongest emperors be? But when he uttered these words, it left Wu Li momentarily stunned. Then he squinted at Jian Wushuang, as if he thought Jian Wushuang was joking. The Ancient Moon sect, although all their members are experts of the Tribulation Realm internally, these experts, when they were emperors, weren't particularly outstanding, nowhere near as remarkable as that high priest. Wu Li paused for a moment, but still misunderstood. Thankfully, Jian Wushuang caught on, nodded quickly, then pretended to be profound, saying, "These great powers, so mighty, often appear quite ordinary in their youth. Like me, perhaps becoming a Tribulation Realm expert would be quite difficult. Dao friend Wushuang, you're worrying too much. As long as one isn't practicing some special secret technique, becoming a Tribulation Realm expert is as easy as pie." As Wu Li spoke, he brought up some rumors circulating within the Ancient Moon spacetime. Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if it was the other party's temperament or if it was because he had been in a high position for too long, lacking peers to chat with, always talking endlessly. If Jian Wushuang hadn't come from another spacetime, he would have grown impatient long ago. Fortunately, he needed to know these rumors now. Otherwise, if he remained clueless when questioned later, wouldn't it raise suspicions like a fool? Seeing Jian Wushuang listening with relish, Wu Li completely opened up. The Ancient Moon spacetime was vast and full of opportunities. Becoming a Tribulation Realm expert wasn't difficult. What was difficult was the strength of each tribulation, obliterating countless Tribulation Realm experts. Just the inheritance of the Tribulation Realm in the Ancient Moon spacetime was too numerous to count. The accumulation of experience in becoming a Tribulation Realm expert was extremely rich. So Wu Li felt that becoming a Tribulation Realm expert wasn't difficult. What was difficult was how to traverse the path beyond the Tribulation Realm. From the first tribulation all the way to the 9th tribulation. Although the 8th Tribulation Realm was rare, there were still some rumors about it. However, the existence of the 9th Tribulation Realm was unheard of. Even within the ancient moon sect, there was no one at the Nine Tribulation Realm. The only recorded individual at the Nine Tribulation Realm was the celestial maiden who opened the ancient moon spacetime. But after opening this path in the ancient moon spacetime, that celestial maiden fell. Following her, there was never another Nine Tribulation Realm expert. The strongest were only at the half-step Nine Tribulation Realm. Of course, some boasted about being able to match the Nine Tribulation Realm, but since no one had seen it, who knew if they could truly match it? The ancient moon spacetime didn't have it. But there were 8 Tribulation Realm experts who, while traveling to other spacetimes, encountered 9 Tribulation Realm experts roaming the boundless starry sky. Their divine bodies were like cosmic giants, exceedingly dazzling. Even 8 Tribulation Realm experts couldn't get close, let alone engage in conversation. Jian Wushuang listened with fascination, especially when it came to the 9 Tribulation Realm. Roaming the starry sky, their divine bodies were like cosmic giants. Even 8 Tribulation Realm experts were not qualified to approach. How powerful must they be? Was teacher Xianxia at that level? Jian Wushuang had many doubts in his heart. Things like temporal treasures were probably created by these great beings. The 9 Tribulation Realm, an existence akin to eternity. They were transcendent beings, unbound by control or constraint, unaffected by time, utter freedom. Whenever he reached that level, he must explore the entire expanse of the starry sky. Witness anything within the boundless expanse of time. As the two conversed more eagerly, they forgot about the passage of time. Nowadays, there were rumors circulating outside about a mysterious powerful figure emerging from the Wu family. Meanwhile, a strong figure from the Ming sect had also arrived at the Wu family, seeking out Yuqi Mingfeng. Let's settle it today, Wu Li spoke up. Dao friend Jian Wushuang, I have already contacted the steward of the Qingyun sect. You can head to the Qingyun sect at any time. Once you're there, we can discuss further. Jian Wushuang nodded and replied, Then I'll wait for your message at the Qingyun sect. The matter regarding the Wanlu divine tree wasn't as simple as it seemed. It required careful consideration. Just Wu Li's plan alone was quite elaborate. First, he needed to enter the Qingyun sect as a friend of Wu Li's, and then, as a disciple of the Qingyun sect, proceed to the ancient Wu sect to participate in the Saint Gathering Sacred Assembly. However, the timing of the Sacred Assembly was always different. Every time the Sacred Assembly was held, a holy maiden from the ancient Wu sect would appear. Wu Li learned from his mistress that the current holy maiden was about to undergo tribulation and had no confidence in surviving it. She was already making arrangements for her succession. At this point, they began to set up their plans, not a moment too soon. If they waited for the holy maiden to fall, the ancient Wu sect would take precautions and initiate the sacred assembly, inviting all the strong figures from the ancient Wu continent to the core of the continent to participate. Unfortunately, the ancient Wu sect only had a holy maiden, not a holy son. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang could have tried his luck. After breaking the barrier, Yuqi Mingfeng finally relaxed seeing the two of them unharmed. Wu Li, I'll take my leave now. Jian Wushuang clasped his fists and then enveloped Yuqi Mingfeng with a strand of thought power, tearing through the space and leaving the main hall directly. Sensing Jian Wushuang's departure, Wu Li pondered for a long time. This time he was quite lucky. Such a significant opportunity had landed on his head. Originally, he also had hopes of activating the Wanlu divine tree, but unfortunately, the life power above the jade sword was gradually diminishing, which significantly reduced the probability of success. However, he didn't inform Jian Wushuang about this. Typically, it was the strong figures of the ancient Wu sect who activated the Wanlu divine tree, monopolizing those special life power. The ordinary sects had no qualifications to obtain it. TSK, I hope I didn't misjudge things. Wu Li's figure also faintly disappeared. Silence enveloped the hall. The matter concerning the Wu family was not much of a disturbance, and very few people were aware of it. Not long after Jian Wushuang left, news spread of Wu Li receiving his friends, marking the hidden identity of Jian Wushuang's reincarnation. In just 3 days, Jian Wushuang returned to his peak, officially stepping into the vast and turbulent ancient moon spacetime. And just as he arrived, he encountered a significant opportunity. Among the 10 individuals, his luck could be said to be top-notch. The luck of the others wasn't as good. The ancient Wood continent, the 16 kingdoms of green grass. The U kingdom was just one of them. It was considered a medium-sized kingdom or country. The one ruling over the 16 kingdoms was not the 8-star sect of the ancient Wood sect, but rather the largest spacetime secret realm above the ancient Wood continent. Within it lay the strongest divine-level kingdom among the 16 kingdoms, the Sure Kingdom. After 10,000 years since the reincarnation of the 10 individuals from the Xianxia temple, a peerless genius appeared in the Sure Kingdom. Born as an immortal realm cultivator, she had become peerlessly perfect in 10,000, almost invincible at the same level, able to rival ordinary experts in the tribulation realm. With the power of flames coursing through her body, she traversed the sky. As her phoenix eyes opened, the sun rose. Fan Tianfeng. She was none other than Fan Feng, the leader of the 18 divine generals of the Xianxia temple, reincarnated. She and Jian Wushuang reincarnated into the ancient Wood continent together, but their backgrounds were worlds apart. Fan Feng's identity after reincarnation was no less than that of the Xianxia temple. She was the descendant of the ancient family of the flame god Hou-Yi, possessing absolute bloodline power. Actually, recovering to the peak in 10,000 years was considered a normal speed, and even somewhat slow. But she had completely integrated into the cultivation system of the ancient moon spacetime, equivalent to a complete recultivation, hence the slow speed. However, the increase in strength was very significant. Now her combat power was several times stronger than before reincarnation. Otherwise, she wouldn't be invincible at the same level within the Sure Kingdom. Perhaps only the geniuses of the ancient Wood sect could rival her. The Holy Maiden of Ancient Wood? Fan Feng, bathed in flames, smiled. She was now the direct descendant of the Flame God clan, with the richest bloodline among them, holding an extremely high status. She naturally disdained the position of the Holy Maiden. Even though she had been cultivating in the Sure Kingdom all along, she managed to break through to the realm of tribulation. Within the Tao arena of the Flame God clan, Fan Tianfeng received a transmission from the ancestor, instructing her to participate in the ancient Wood sect's assembly 10 years later to vie for the position of the Holy Maiden. Although she was somewhat puzzled, she couldn't refute the ancestor's command. Moreover, she came to the ancient moon spacetime to become stronger, so there was no reason not to go. At the same time, the geniuses of the 16 kingdoms almost all received a similar order to attend the assembly of the ancient Wood sect, regardless of gender, not only for the position of Holy Maiden, but also because this sacred assembly would produce 4 spots, which were important for many superpowers. The Emperor and the Realm of Tribulation each had 4 spots. So this time it was not only about the competition for the Emperor's position, but also about personally going to compete. In the Yu Kingdom, within the 7-star sect, the Qingyun sect, Jian Wushuang had been in the Qingyun sect for thousands of years, but this amount of time was too short for cultivators. So even after staying for such a long time, he still hadn't thoroughly understood the Qingyun sect, let alone becoming a core member. Although his strength was formidable, he was still an outer disciple, usually dealing with trivial matters. This was all thanks to the effect of Wu Li's personal recommendation. If it weren't for the recommendation, he probably wouldn't even have been able to become an outer disciple. He could only run errands. Greetings, disciple. On this day, Jian Wushuang, as usual, headed to the Xinji Hall. Every outer disciple he encountered paid their respects to him. Jian Wushuang just nodded lightly, without stopping his steps, and headed straight to the backyard of the Xinji Hall. This place was important to the Qingyun sect, and it was where the sect missions were assigned. Jian Wushuang needed to come here every year, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. Over thousands of years, he was already familiar with the place. Jian Wushuang, you're quite early today. In the rear courtyard, within a secluded hall, Jian Wushuang had just entered when he heard a familiar voice calling out. Jian Wushuang quickly clasped his fists and replied, "Isn't it Elder Mukin's birthday today? He has shown me kindness, so I came to seek a precious item." After joining Qingyun sect, He had become a disciple of Elder Mukin due to his relationship with Wu Li. Elder Mukin's strength was not inferior to Wu Li's, and his background within the sect was strong as well. Following him over the years, Jian Wushuang hadn't suffered any losses. The main reason was Elder Mukin's connection to the royal family of Yu Kingdom. Wu Li had instructed him to curry favor with Elder Mukin to set up their plans. For these years within Qingyun's sect, Jian Wushuang had been mostly pleasing Elder Mukin. Coincidentally, Elder Mukin also held him in high regard. When he first entered the trial of the Qingyun sect, he, with the talent of an emperor, erupted with 90,000-fold divine power, showing astonishing potential, not weaker than some of the core disciples within the sect. With the added relationship with Wu Li, he was nurtured as if he were a trusted confidant. Many internal matters were left for Jian Wushuang to handle. Even the matter of taking concubines was managed diligently by Jian Wushuang. Now, on the occasion of a grand celebration, Jian Wushuang couldn't afford to neglect it. So, according to the information provided by Wu Li, he came to the Xinji Hall to find the Elder Muchun for the usual 100 flowers vine. This plant grows within the borders of Yu Kingdom, not particularly rare, but obtaining it could be somewhat troublesome. However, for Jian Wushuang, none of this posed a problem. The 100 flowers vine? Upon hearing this name, the person behind the counter revealed a look of surprise and cautioned. Don't blame me for being meddlesome, but the 100 flowers vine is not simple. Even Tribulation Realm experts find it hard to obtain. Why not buy some ready-made instead? But Jian Wushuang insisted repeatedly, and the other party didn't say much more, simply handing over some information about the 100 flowers vine. All the information about the 100 flowers vine is here. Take a look at your leisure. In the eyes of the other party, Jian Wushuang also had a background, and those like them who could enter the Xinji Hall were all from prominent families. Naturally, Jian Wushuang was treated equally. If it were just an ordinary steward with no background, they might have given him a hard time but offered some benefits. Jian Wushuang smiled, thanked them, copied the information from the jade slip, and left the Xinji Hall. After leaving the Xinji Hall, he headed straight for his cave dwelling. It was located on the waist of Mount Li within the Qingyun sect, in a position that didn't attract much attention. On the entire mountain, there was only his cave dwelling. The spiritual energy here was average, not attracting other stewards. Jian Wushuang was quite satisfied with this place because of its seclusion. After entering the cave dwelling, he directly activated the prohibition array. Then, he took out a simple and ancient mirror. With a light touch, a faint figure appeared above it. Brother Wu Li, this time Elder Mukin will go to the capital to celebrate his birthday. It's a rare opportunity. Jian Wushuang couldn't contain his excitement in his heart. After planning for thousands of years, the first step was about to be taken. The figure of Wu Li in the mirror looked grim. He wasn't particularly concerned about Elder Mukin's matter and reminded, I recently lost contact with someone from the ancient Wood sect. There might be some big moves happening soon. Be careful in everything. That's where Mukin is. Jian Wushuang exclaimed, surprised. It's been such a long time. It would be a waste to give up now. Now he was feeling somewhat hesitant. Mukin was the prince of the Yu Kingdom's royal family, the current empress of Yu, and also his younger sister. What's more crucial? The current crown princess is seeking a consort. Moreover, that crown princess's strength is formidable, almost sweeping through the entire realm of the Yu Kingdom's emperor level. She is the most hopeful candidate from the Yu Kingdom to compete for the position of the Holy Maiden in the ancient Wood sect. Wu Li and Jian Wushuang were keen on each other because of this point, which led them to curry favor with Mukin. Although Elder Mukin's strength was only average, having a good younger sister, whose strength reached the half-step 6 Tribulation Realm, made her one of the top superpowers in the Yu Kingdom. After all, the Qingyun sect currently didn't even have a true 6 Tribulation Realm, only scattered strong individuals with the power of the 6 Tribulation Realm. Moreover, that crown princess, having grown up without a father, was well taken care of by Mukin, and the two had a very good relationship. If it weren't for this relationship, given Mukin's strength, Jian Wushuang wouldn't even bother with her. After hearing this, Wu Li pondered for a moment before saying, Mukin's birthday celebration this time will be held in the capital. "We'll go together then, and I've already figured out a plan." After the two agreed, they severed contact. Everything was under control. However, Jian Wushuang didn't inquire about the plan in detail, figuring they would discuss it when they met. But the general strategy seemed somewhat clandestine. To become a consort wouldn't be a loss for him, but he had heard that the crown princess was rather robust. He was afraid he couldn't handle it. For the sake of opportunity, he had to give his all. With a determined bite, Jian Wushuang prepared to go in search for the 100 Flowers Vine. Yu Kingdom, border province capital. This place was located to the south with a lot of mountains and forests. It wasn't surprising. In the ancient Wood continent, opportunities entirely covered the mountains and forests. The earth was flourishing. The 100 Flowers Vine grew on the 100 Flowers Mountain in the border province. Jian Wushuang tore through the void, and after a day's effort, he arrived at the 100 Flowers Mountain. This time he went all in. The 100 Flowers Mountain was guarded by flower demons, among which were those at the tribulation level. The 100 Flowers Vine withered day by day. At most, it could be prolonged for 3 days. That's why this place hadn't been divided by major forces. The main reason was the strength of the Flower Demon King on the mountain. It was rumored to be on par with 4 Tribulation. Even the Universe Masters would detour when they came. It wasn't easy to take, and with the vine withering every day, if luck wasn't on one side, by the time the 100 Flowers Vine withered, one might not even have left the 100 Flowers Mountain. The 100 Flowers Mountain was divided into 6 layers. The lower 3 layers were fine, with few Tribulation Realm flower demons. But the upper 3 layers were almost all inhabited by flower demons. As for the 100 Flowers Vine, it wasn't the only treasure on the mountain. Jian Wushuang needed to reach the 4th layer to find the 100 Flowers Vine. If he wanted to time it right, he needed to enter the 5th layer. There was still a month left until Mukin's birthday celebration. He needed to sneak into the 4th layer and wait in the dark. When the time was right, he would then proceed to the 5th layer. Once he found the 100 Flowers Vine, he had to leave immediately and arrive in the capital before the first withering. At the peak speed, he could reach it in an hour. The only variable was going down the mountain. Flower demons dwelled on the 100 Flowers Vine. If stolen, it would surely attract pursuit. Wanting to descend the mountain within a day, even Jian Wushuang didn't have much confidence. After all, this was the territory of the flower demons. If it were just a single 3 Tribulation Realm flower demon, he would have the ability to escape. But there were quite a few 3 Tribulation Realm flower demons in the 5th level. Even that Flower Demon King occasionally ventured into the 5th level. If he encountered that one, it would be all over. In a short time, he definitely couldn't free himself. If push comes to shove, he could only use the power of life. These flower demons probably couldn't comprehend the uniqueness of the power of life. Of course, he also feared that there were other cultivators here who could see through it. Now, he also had a rough understanding of the ancient moon spacetime. Wu Li was able to see the special nature of the power of life from the Juyun sword, because Wu Li originally had the Jade sword. Others might not necessarily be able to see it. Why is this old guy so fixated on this? Jian Wushuang shook his head helplessly. It made him extremely passive now. In fact, the 100 Flowers Vine wasn't particularly special. The 100 Flower Vine could enhance divine power and be used to refine divine pills. But these could also be achieved after withering. The most precious aspect of fresh 100 Flowers Vine was its ability to nurture the origin source divine power. It contained the pure source of plants and trees, which could make divine power extremely vigorous. Divine power differed from the origin source. To maintain vigorous divine power continuously, what was needed wasn't just secret techniques and realms, but more importantly, the nourishment of treasures. Jian Wushuang empathized deeply. His divine body was forged through the use of treasures. Although the ancient moon spacetime boasted a perfect method for cultivating divine bodies, it was still challenging, not much easier than cultivating through the origin source. Yet, enhancement through treasures was swifter. When Jian Wushuang utilized the skeleton of Dongjun to enhance his divine body, he multiplied his power tens of thousands of times in just a few hundred years. If in the ancient moon spacetime, practicing the highest level of divine body cultivation techniques, it would probably take several epochs. Thinking of this, a smirk played on Jian Wushuang's lips. When he left the Qixin temple, Zhen Ling actually gifted him Dong Jun's skeleton. Over the past 10,000 years, his foundational divine body had already increased by more than 90,000-fold, almost reaching the perfect 100,000-fold. During his time in the Qixin temple as an emperor, he had achieved 80,000-fold. However, the ancient moon spacetime was different. Due to the main focus on divine power cultivation, an emperor could increase their divine power to 100,000-fold times, reaching the perfect state to transcend tribulations. Jian Wushuang was now very close to 100,000-fold divine power. Once his foundational divine power reached 100,000-fold, when he unleashed the power of the threefold beast god, at that time, merely by exerting divine power alone, he could rival a strong opponent at the level of the three tribulation realm. If it weren't for the prohibition imposed by the Zhen Ling on the skeleton of Dong Jun, he would have eagerly devoured it entirely. Unfortunately, he was only an emperor now. The restrictions above required him to reach 100,000-fold before he could unlock them. Zhen Ling feared he might dismantle the skeleton and sell it, hence imposed the prohibition out of concern. This could only be seen as a narrow-minded move on their part. In the Qixin temple, the emperor's divine power would reach perfection at 80,000-fold. Things were different here. It was not a complete success, but with the skeletal remains of Dong Jun, he could go much farther. When the time comes, he would dismantle Dong Jun's framework, devouring each bone one by one. After reaching the tribulation realm, he wouldn't need to worry about enhancing his divine power anymore. All he needed to do was to scour the ancient moon spacetime for treasures that could enhance his origin source. Divine power was primary, origin source was secondary. Naturally, treasures related to origin source were not as valuable as divine power treasures. But he prioritized the origin source over divine power. He could definitely make a hefty profit. When the time comes, he would exchange all the divine body treasures he obtained for origin source treasures. Fortune is right before my eyes. Jian Wushuang's figure kept shuttling and had already entered the 100 Flowers Mountain. And indeed, fortune lay before him. Being able to enter the ancient moon spacetime was the greatest opportunity. After entering the first level, Jian Wushuang didn't linger. He concealed his figure and relied on the realm of space. Those emperor-level flower spirits couldn't see him at all. He easily entered the second layer. It was also on the second layer that he encountered many cultivators. However, these cultivators were already obsessed. In the first 3 layers of 100 Flowers Mountain, there were countless flower spirits and beauties, and these cultivators had already become engrossed in them. This was also the most distinctive treasure of the first 3 layers of 100 Flowers Mountain. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but sigh. While it was true that the scenery was beautiful, it was more like a human hell. Even the hearts of the strong were worn away. He couldn't stay here for long. Jian Wushuang accelerated, directly passing through the first 3 layers and entering the 4th layer. After reaching the 4th layer, he calmed down a lot. There were hardly any cultivators to be seen, and the flower spirits and demons here were also violent, far from the seductive feeling of the first 3 layers. Jian Wushuang also figured out the reason. These flower spirits devoured the divine power inside the cultivators' bodies to enhance their strength. It was a shortcut, but it also had backlash. After becoming a tribulation realm, her character became more erratic and violent. Jian Wushuang, however, found the devouring power within them quite intriguing. Being able to devour divine power, it reminded him of himself. He too could devour. Back then, he had devoured the divine body of his opponents, then transformed it into divine power. However, he soon discovered the repercussions involved, so he stopped doing so. At most, after taking the opponent's divine body, he would refine it into pure divine power before devouring it. It was somewhat troublesome, not as convenient as directly seeking out treasures of divine bodies to devour. Seeing these flower spirits now, he became interested again. He wanted to take the opportunity to study them. The ancient moon spacetime was mainly about divine power. If he could improve the backlash during devouring, the entire ancient moon spacetime would become his garden. Unfortunately, things were never that simple. If he really did that, he was afraid he would follow the path of Miashang. If Miashang devoured the power of life, he would achieve perfection. The entire spacetime would become a cycle of reincarnation. It would become Miashang's Tao arena. Although it was also an invincible path, it definitely wasn't the path Jian Wushuang would take. Even if, in the future, he killed Miashang and devoured the power of death, he wouldn't achieve invincibility through the power of reincarnation. Instead, he would continue on his own path. The origin source spacetime was the true path in the starry sky. Although the ancient moon spacetime was strong, it followed the path of divine power. To forcefully break through all laws might be domineering, but it was too difficult. Assistance was acceptable. Spacetime was the only way. Traveling through time and space would be even more exhilarating. Moreover, due to his extreme Tao affinity, he was even more suitable for the spacetime path. After observing for a long time, Jian Wushuang still couldn't understand the devouring power of these flower demons. Thinking about it, it made sense. Initially, Miashang, to open up a new path, didn't know how much time it took. How could it be easy for him to succeed? Concealed in the fourth layer, Jian Wushuang transformed into a piece of rubble, lurking faintly in a stream. Time flew by. A month's time was nothing but a sigh. On this day, as the stone that Jian Wushuang had transformed into flowed along the stream, preparing to advance to the fifth layer, he sensed a fluctuation of divine power. Is it a commotion coming from the fifth layer? Jian Wushuang was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected his luck to be this good. If there was a fight on the fifth level, it would help him attract many flower spirits and demons. He could take the opportunity to collect the 100 flowers vine. It was a perfect opportunity, and he naturally wouldn't let it slip by. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang directly transformed back into his true form and effortlessly tore through the space, entering the fifth level. Before him lay a scene of serenity, with flowers blooming under the full moon. It was precisely midnight. Everything seemed tranquil. However, the divine power fluctuation grew stronger. It wasn't just one person's aura. There were at least 3 tribulation realm existences. Jian Wushuang didn't dare to be careless. He cautiously used his thought power to explore, beginning to search for the 100 flowers vine. Fortunately, the 5th level wasn't too large, and his thought power could cover 1/10 of it. Expanding further would risk exposure. Although Jian Wushuang was pressed for time, he didn't want to mess up his own plan. Within just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he discovered a section of 100 flowers vine in the southeast direction. Moreover, it seemed there were 400 flower spirit seeds above it. It far exceeded the average 100 flowers vine. It is rumored that on the 6th level, there is 1,000 flowers vine. Whether it's true or not, no one knows. No one knew. Initially, there was an unbelieving emperor of the 5 tribulation realm who went to investigate, but in the end, he left empty-handed. This place is the lair of the flower demons. Even if it's on the 6th floor, the 5 tribulation experts wouldn't gain any advantage by going there. Jian Wushuang dared not dwell on it any longer. He was already satisfied with the vine with 400 flower seeds before him. With this item, if brought out, it would be more than enough to offer blessings to Mukin. Jian Wushuang moved slowly, finding only 10 flower demons at the 2 tribulation realm nearby, not even a single one at the 3 tribulation realm, which was indeed a golden opportunity. Seizing this 100 flowers vine, he could leave in an instant. There were still 10 hours left until the banquet arranged by Mukin. He had plenty of time. 100 Flowers Mountain, 5th layer. Young Master, I've restrained a large number of flower demons. We can take action now. An elderly man in green clothes said, his divine power surging violently. He alone held back several flower demons at the Tribulation Realm. Behind him were 2 other Tribulation Realm powerhouses, both formidable at least at the 3 Tribulation level. However, these 3 Tribulation Realm powerhouses were not universe masters. They were wandering Tribulation experts. Compared to genuine Tribulation Realm experts, wandering Tribulation experts lacked a Tao arena. By severing their own Tao, their Tao arena and universe naturally collapsed. But the man in green clothes was a genuine universe master, with strength several times greater than those two wandering tribulation realm experts. He alone held back a large number of flower demons, including several at the three tribulation realm. In a secluded thicket, a young girl in a light blue skirt had pointed ears and bright green eyes, giving her a mischievous look. Upon hearing the transmission from the old man, her divine power didn't erupt, but her speed was exceptionally fast. With a few flashes, she broke free from the encirclement of flower demons, heading straight for the 100 flowers vine with 400 flower seeds. However, she was unaware that someone had already seized the opportunity. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly, sensing a very faint force approaching, not threatening, but peculiar. He didn't dare to be careless, so after carefully storing the 100 flowers vine, he concealed his figure, preparing to leave. Those flower demons couldn't detect him at all. However, after the 100 flowers vine was stolen, many flower demons glanced around, emitting sharp, piercing sounds, unusually grating to the ears. Jian Wushuang's figure gradually materialized under the rippling sound waves. They still possess this kind of ability? Jian Wushuang marveled. He had encountered similar melodies on the Demon Sound Mountain. The moment his figure was exposed, he abandoned all disguise and directly erupted with nearly 100,000-fold divine power, recklessly departing. The young demoness rushing from below, upon unexpectedly encountering a mysterious powerful being, felt a shock in her heart. Then, realizing the mystery and glancing towards the 100 flowers vine, her expression darkened, puffing her cheeks in frustration. Elder Feng, the 100 flowers vine has been snatched away by another powerful individual. Hurry to the 4th level and intercept this person. The plot they had planned for so long had been usurped by someone else, leaving the girl infuriated. Unfortunately, she hadn't reached the tribulation realm yet. Otherwise, she would have slaughtered the other party on the spot. However, the next moment, upon sensing the fluctuation of the mysterious strong man's divine power, a cold smile crept onto her lips. His divine power is less than 100,000-fold. Buzz! The girl soared into the air, her power bursting forth. Although not in the tribulation realm, she possessed over 100,000-fold divine power. With the aid of her body-transforming treasures, her divine power could amplify to around 120,000-fold. Jian Wushuang, who was about to leave, was somewhat surprised to see the girl blocking his path. A mere emperor, unexpectedly so powerful. Of course, it was just a passing exclamation. She must be a genius from some major clan. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to the 5th layer of the 100 Flowers Mountain. Presumably, she was also here for the 100 Flowers Vine. However, the treasures in his possession wouldn't be easy to snatch away. Jian Wushuang stood proudly, indifferently saying, "Little girl, I advise you to step aside." He didn't have time to conflict with these people now. Stealing my opportunity and then asking me to step aside? You're quite audacious. The girl stood with hands on her hips, staring at Jian Wushuang, showing no intention of backing down. Instead, she was preparing to take down Jian Wushuang. Though an emperor, her strength could rival that of an average tribulation realm expert. In her eyes, Jian Wushuang was nothing more than an ordinary tribulation realm cultivator, with his divine power not even reaching 100,000-fold. He was simply not her match. Jian Wushuang slowly raised his arm, curling his fingers slightly into a fist, finally realizing what was happening. He was being treated like a soft target. A mere emperor, even if comparable to a tribulation realm cultivator, was insignificant in his presence. Then let's do this. Jian Wushuang suddenly clenched his fist, roaring angrily as his divine power surged abruptly. The immense power brought forth a gust of wind, toppling countless trees and shrubs around him. His divine power, which had been close to 100,000-fold, skyrocketed in an instant to 130,000-fold. The mischievous and astute girl exclaimed, "You're quite nimble, I must say. I didn't expect your divine power to reach 130,000-fold. But this level of strength isn't enough. With that, she dared to strike first. Jian Wushuang hadn't anticipated the confidence the girl displayed, knowing full well she only had 120,000-fold divine power. Yet she dared to challenge him. As the girl rushed forward, Jian Wushuang's true body had long departed, leaving only an afterimage behind. Her attack missed its mark, and as the girl hastily turned her head to search for Jian Wushuang's whereabouts, he, being a seasoned veteran of combat, wasn't about to make it that easy. In the instant the girl turned, he appeared above her, hands crossing as he delivered a powerful blow that sent her plummeting from the sky. Then, relying on his agility, he swiftly returned to the ground, injecting the power of all things into his divine body with one hand before the girl could land. He unleashed a force exceeding 150,000-fold divine power. This force formed a pillar of light that soared straight into the sky. That girl, even if she didn't die, would surely be gravely injured. In the heat of the battle, it lasted but a moment, and Jian Wushuang acted swiftly. "I've told you, step aside." Jian Wushuang shook his head with a wry smile. He thought he had dealt with his opponent already, but as he turned to leave, he felt a formidable force rising behind him. That force erupted into blazing flames. Jian Wushuang furrowed his brows. As he slowly turned around, the fire illuminated half of his face. Behind him, there appeared an immensely huge mass of roots and vegetation, continuously growing. This scene instantly caught the attention of the flower demons. Originally engaged in besieging the 3 Tribulation Realm experts, they now went berserk upon witnessing this scene. Even the 6th-layer flower demons and spirits were alarmed. The old man in green clothes turned pale, trembling as he said, "The young lady has activated the prohibition. Hurry! Go help, or else the backlash will devour her. Steward, notify the mansion immediately. If something happens to the young lady, we won't be able to bear the consequences." Gritting his teeth, the old man in green clothes, who had sneaked out with the young lady this time, knew that seeking help might bring punishment upon them. But not seeking help now might lead to dire consequences they couldn't bear. After a moment of hesitation, the green-clothed steward finally nodded in agreement. He relayed the message back to a certain mansion in Yu country, and then the 3 of them rushed towards the direction where the young lady's power was erupting. At this moment, Jian Wushuang realized that the flower demons had already surrounded him, making it impossible to break free. Moreover, the mysterious girl suddenly erupted, probably feeling desperate. Now he couldn't escape anymore. He wished he had sought out other 100 flowers vines earlier. Encountering such a tricky situation now, it wasn't fear that gripped him but annoyance. However, this sealed environment had its benefits for him. He could boldly display his strength without fear of prying eyes. Within the flames, the green aura on the girl's body transformed into a fiery red. Her eyes were like bells, filled with anger, and behind her stood a bear-shaped ancient tree with a spherical form. "You have angered me." The girl pointed her finger. Her divine power erupted once more, soaring from 120,000-fold to a staggering 150,000-fold. Jian Wushuang was shocked. A divine body of 150,000-fold, already at the level of the 2 Tribulation Realm. For an emperor to possess such strength was astonishing. Among the 10 members of their Qixin temple, perhaps only Hu Qing and himself had this level of combat power. The ancient moon spacetime was indeed one of the 9 core temporal rivers. Even within the borders of Yu Kingdom, encountering such formidable individuals was commonplace. Unfortunately, she had picked the wrong person. Yu, an emperor, possessing such strength, is impressive, but still not enough. Jian Wushuang's aura surged outward. This time, he wasn't planning to leave in a hurry. After all, there was still half a day left, so he could play with her for a while. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the girl's expression changed dramatically, disbelief evident as she said, "You can tell that I'm an emperor?" Her identity was extremely noble, possessing the ancestral treasure of her family, which could conceal her own tribulation realm. The ancestor had mentioned that unless one was a powerhouse in the tribulation realm, They couldn't see through her realm at all. Could it be that the other party was disguised as a veteran of the Tribulation realm? Thinking of this, the young girl felt a bit afraid. Jian Wushuang saw the expression on the other party's face and realized he had misspoken again. As a practitioner of the spacetime origin source, he could directly perceive the other party's cultivation realm, which was easy for him. However, the ancient moon spacetime mainly relied on divine power. With my discerning eye, how could I not see through a little girl like you? Jian Wushuang feigned a profound appearance. At the same time, he looked up at the giant bear-like creature, sensing an aura surpassing 150,000-fold divine power. It was a tough opponent. Moreover, the flower demons had already gathered around. This time he wanted to leave, but it seemed impossible. He could only fight. Seeing the girl hesitating to make a move, Jian Wushuang also felt somewhat at a loss. Both of them had their reservations about each other. But those flower demons had no such reservations. They were already close. Jian Wushuang could only take the initiative to deal with those flower demons. Countless vines attacked, and several streams of starry sky sword chi instantly floated around Jian Wushuang. This power was completely different from the power of ancient moon spacetime. When the girl felt this power, her brow furrowed, feeling a terrifying force that made her unable to move. Deep down, she became even more convinced that he was undoubtedly an old monster. However, Jian Wushuang had no idea what the other party was thinking. Facing so many flower demons, Jian Wushuang could only use the starry sky sword intent to quickly clean them up. At the same time, he began to head towards the entrance of the fourth layer. The three Tribulation realm powerhouses who rushed over from afar breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that their young lady was safe. "Young miss, I have informed the mansion, and within an hour, powerful reinforcements will arrive," the steward in green clothes said respectfully. However, the girl put away the prohibition secret technique, and the tree bear slowly disappeared. "No need, it's useless to call more people. That mysterious powerhouse should be a 5 Tribulation realm old monster." Upon hearing the term 5 Tribulation realm, the three of them were stunned, and cold sweat broke out on their backs. The Tribulation realm, 9 tribulations. The first 3 tribulations can only be considered as just entering. Only when one reaches the 3 Tribulation realm, mastering a universe, only then can they be considered as stepping into the ranks of the powerful. Then there's the 4 Tribulation realm. There are the most Tribulation realm cultivators at this level. But reaching the 5 Tribulation realm isn't so easy. In Yu Kingdom, and even throughout the entire ancient Wood continent, 5 Tribulation realm powerhouses are almost all influential figures. Because the universe masters of the 6 Tribulation realm almost never appear, they are all leaders of a faction. So the universe master of the 5 Tribulation realm is a figure who stirs up the winds and clouds in a region. As for the scattered and wandering Tribulation realm powerhouses, even if they were scattered Tribulation powerhouses of the 6 Tribulation realm, they were ultimately wandering Tribulation realm cultivators without any further advancement, and their strength was constantly declining. They can only slumber to maintain their peak state. The stronger the scattered calamity expert, the greater the consumption. For instance, the Qingyun sect of the 7 Stars sect has a scattered tribulation expert at the 7 Tribulation realm, who has existed for endless ages. But in these endless ages, they have only awakened 3 times. Each time, their strength has declined significantly. Usually, unless there is something significant, they won't awaken at all. As for scattered tribulation experts at the 8 Tribulation realm, they are even rarer. The ancestor at the 8 Tribulation realm from the ancient Wood sect has never appeared, with scant records of their existence. As for the universe masters at the 7 Tribulation realm, or even the 8 Tribulation realm, they are even more elusive. These figures are the true super experts of this spacetime. Some once glorious 8-star sects had fallen to the point where they lacked even the universe masters of the 7 Tribulation realm. These sects were in decline, relying solely on scattered tribulation experts to sustain them. But it was precisely because of these scattered tribulation experts that the 8-star sects almost eternally endured, never facing complete annihilation. In the ancient moon spacetime, 19 8-star sects had existed for endless ages. No one knew for sure just how many scattered tribulation experts lurked within the 8-star sects. If it's a 5 tribulation realm expert, he might also be a scattered tribulation expert. Xianxia, the steward in the green robe, reassured, even if it's a universe lord of the 5 tribulation realm, they should still give our kingdom some face. However, the young woman shook her head in surprise. After all, 5 tribulation realm experts are formidable. It's best not to provoke them if we can help it. In that case, let's go. Obtaining a section of the 100 Flowers vine will suffice. Even if we don't get it, it's no big deal. I have other gifts prepared. The young woman faced Jian Wushuang and completely gave up. Moreover, with Jian Wushuang currently slaughtering those flower demons wantonly, she took the opportunity to leave. The 3 tribulation realm experts nodded in agreement. Leaving was the best option. Boom! For some reason, those flower demons only besieged Jian Wushuang, ignoring the mysterious young woman and her group. This infuriated Jian Wushuang even more. Though he could freely use the sword intent of the Starry Sky, it was merely the sword chi from the Starry Sky Chronicles. Even if he were to slaughter them all, including those on the 5th level, it wouldn't matter. But he didn't have the time for that now. Seeing that the mysterious young woman and her group had quietly slipped away, Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that they might act recklessly and attack him. Then he would be caught in a pincer attack. Forget it. Let's just consider it as enhancing my divine body. Jian Wushuang chuckled bitterly. His figure sank into a black hole, revealing a hidden realm behind him. All those flower demons he had slaughtered were now falling into his cosmic secret realm. Their frenzied divine power would be transformed into pure divine power. Unfortunately, the extraction was too minimal, only increasing his divine power by a few hundredfold. This slight augmentation of power, once appealing to him, now paled in comparison to the skeletal remains of Dong Jun in his possession. After once again utilizing his sword chi to slaughter dozens of flower demons, Jian Wushuang prepared to depart. However, in the next moment, the ground began to tremble, and an immense aura emanated from above. Furrowing his brow, Jian Wushuang recognized this aura as likely coming from the Flower Demon King. It was the aura of a 4 Tribulation Realm expert. Though the opponent was a scattered Tribulation Realm cultivator, such powerful individuals at the Quadruple Tribulation Realm didn't consume much energy. Moreover, with this natural Taoist ground, even significant energy consumption could be quickly replenished. This adversary was formidable. No wonder even when a 4 Tribulation Realm expert came before, they couldn't gain any advantage. However, he didn't want to have any conflict with the opponent. It was best to leave as soon as possible. The entrance to the 4th layer was right in front of him. Jian Wushuang leaped forward and entered the cave directly. A large group of flower demons missed their target, then rushed towards the entrance of the 4th level. But at that moment, a voice echoed from the sky. "Let him go!" It was an absolute command from the Flower Demon King. Even though those flower demons had become extremely violent due to devouring the divine power of cultivators, they calmed down. Descending from the sky, the Flower Demon King was accompanied by 1,000 blooming flowers. Upon reaching the ground and sensing the residual power of the starry sky, cold sweat appeared on his forehead. A starry sky expert? It seems like I have to accelerate my plan. After dispersing those flower demons, the Flower Demon King returned to the 6th level of the 100 Flowers Mountain. As for her plan, it was indeed related to Jian Wushuang. It wouldn't be accurate to say it was related to Jian Wushuang alone, but rather to all the Tribulation Realm cultivators on the ancient Wood continent. The saint-gathering sacred assembly of the ancient Wood sect would convene soon. The 4 major positions, as well as the position of the Holy Maiden, were about to be decided. Everyone was keeping an eye on it. Now, Flower Demon King once again perceived the significance of the positions, considering the countless formidable experts in the starry sky. She decided it was better not to stir up trouble unnecessarily. However, Jian Wushuang will not have an easy time leaving today. Upon reaching the 4th layer, Jian Wushuang found it remarkably easy. He no longer concealed his figure, instead unleashing his divine power and breaking through with all his might. Along the way, although there were flower demons of the two tribulation realm, none hindered him. This surprised Jian Wushuang, but it was for the best. After leaving the fourth layer, he directly tore through the space of Hundred Flowers Mountain and departed from there through the chaos of spacetime. When he reappeared, he was already at the boundary capital of the outside world. Finally out! Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief, then reverted to his original appearance, suppressing his strength to the level of an ordinary two-tribulation realm expert, with his aura completely divine. At the same time as Jian Wushuang appeared, a group of mysterious girls happened to pass by. Jian Wushuang recognized them, but now he had changed his appearance and aura, so they didn't recognize him. Among the luxurious entourage, the mysterious girl sensed the aura of an emperor but paid no attention. "Miss, this person is a steward of the Qingyun sect." The old man in green naturally saw Jian Wushuang and recognized his identity from his robes. The mysterious girl said indifferently, "No need to bother. Let's return to the royal capital first." "Yes." The group ignored Jian Wushuang and left directly. Only after they were gone did Jian Wushuang begin to move. "It seems that he's a genius from some family in the royal capital. I just wonder who." Jian Wushuang didn't inform Wu Li of this matter. The emperor possessed the strength of a two-tribulation realm, indicating that the opponent's identity wasn't ordinary. It was best not to provoke them. It's better to cooperate honestly with Wu Li and plan for the Wanlu divine tree together. It would take at least 3 hours to travel from the border province to the capital. Of course, if Jian Wushuang were at his peak, he could make it in the time it takes to burn an incense stick. But it wasn't necessary. It was only noon now. The banquet would be in the evening. There were still several hours left, and it had taken less than 3 hours to pick the 100 flowers vine. The first withering period happened to coincide with Elder Mukin's banquet, and it would be a good opportunity to offer it then. As long as he could establish a strong relationship with Elder Machin, he would be able to infiltrate the core. Then he would qualify to visit the Ancient Wood sect. Otherwise, as someone like him, a nameless and powerful individual, even with Wu Li's recommendation, it would be very troublesome to enter the Ancient Wood sect. Even in the ancient moon spacetime, one's background was important. That's why he sought to attach himself to others. Even if he had to hold his nose and take away the princess, he was willing to do it. For the Qishan temple, he had spared no expense this time. He hadn't taken Dong Jun's bones in vain. The capital of Yu Kingdom sat atop a relatively flat landmass, grand in its expanse. It served as the nucleus of the kingdom, boasting a splendor surpassing even that of Qingyun City beneath the Qingyun sect. All thanks to the power of the Empress of Yu Kingdom. She was a pinnacle figure of the Five Tribulation realm, rumored to be a superpower with hopes of successfully crossing the tribulation. Moreover, within the royal family, there was a scattered ancestor at the Seven Tribulation realm. Their heritage was no less than that of the Qingyun sect. Presently, the Qingyun sect lacked formidable strength. Its reputation in the ancient Wood continent had plummeted. Not even a cosmic master at the Sixth Tribulation realm was present. Only one at the Five Tribulation realm upheld its facade. Hence, Wu Lizhong's plan was to align himself with the royal family of Yu Kingdom rather than the upper echelons of the Qingyun sect. Upon entering the capital, he immediately contacted Wu Li. As there was still some time left, the two found refuge in one of the Wu family's mansions in the capital until nightfall, when they would head to Mukin's royal palace. Mukin, titled as the Wood King, one of the 8 kings of Yu Kingdom. He was also the only 3 Tribulation Realm powerhouse among the 8 kings, and moreover, he was a universe master. His position within the royal family was lofty. In the current era, only the Empress of Yu Kingdom surpassed him in strength. Therefore, his grand celebration was bound to attract strong figures from all directions, with rumors even suggesting the Empress herself might attend. Naturally, Wu Li accompanied him, being one of the 10 major families' ancestors and a good friend of Mukin. His strength was even at the half-step 4 Tribulation Realm. Jian Wushuang had heard some things about Wu Li later on. This old guy kept a low profile but had quite a reputation in Yu Kingdom. Otherwise, the Wu family wouldn't have stood firm among the 10 major families. Brother Wushuang, you've gone to too much trouble this time. You've actually brought the 100 flowers vine. It seems freshly picked. Wu Li scrutinized the 100 flowers vine in the wooden box with fervent eyes. Originally, he had also prepared a gift for Mukin's birthday, but it seemed unnecessary now. Jian Wushuang casually poured himself some tea, savoring it delicately, and replied calmly, "It's nothing much. Without putting in some effort, the other party may not truly value me." Although his strength was decent under Mukin's banner, there were still many top-notch retainers and disciples. After returning the wooden box containing the 100 flowers vine to Jian Wushuang, Wu Li couldn't help but marvel at Jian Wushuang's strength. To obtain such a top-tier 100 flowers vine, one had to go at least to the 5th layer. Those flower demons were not weak in strength. Even if he were to go, if luck wasn't on his side, he wouldn't obtain such a treasure. Moreover, he would have to time the picking precisely, then return swiftly. Jian Wushuang's strength not only matched his own but perhaps even surpassed it. He increasingly felt that his decision to collaborate with Jian Wushuang was a wise one. Simultaneously, he was extremely curious. Jian Wushuang was so powerful, yet he was only an emperor. His identity was certainly not simple. He was either a scion of some terrifying family or a prodigy inheriting the legacy of a certain 8-star sect. And he was the most powerful among them, without a doubt. Emperors capable of contending with the tribulation realm were not few, but those who could defeat it were rare. In the current era, there were probably few who could. Even that high priest, perhaps, wasn't as powerful as Jian Wushuang. He had thought that if Jian Wushuang were to reveal his strength, even the ancient Wood sect would vie for his allegiance. But then, his background would surely be investigated. Wu Li speculated that Jian Wushuang was unwilling to reveal his past life's identity, or perhaps it was too sensitive. His information was well informed. As one of the emperors of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, he had been collecting information diligently, yet he hadn't come across anything related to Jian Wushuang. In the recent 10,000 years, he hadn't heard of any incident of emperor fall. Although there were some doubts, since they were now in a cooperative relationship, he naturally wouldn't ask too much. After a brief chat, Wu Li accompanied Jian Wushuang out of the mansion, heading towards the Wood King's mansion. Just as they arrived outside the Wooden King's mansion, a shout came from afar. "Brother Wu Li!" Following the voice, a sturdy man with the head of a dragon and the body of a man approached. When Jian Wushuang saw the figure, his eyes narrowed slightly, feeling a familiar sense of pressure deep within. That oppressive feeling, he had felt it before in Broly. He hadn't expected to encounter such a sensation here. Broly was a super powerhouse in the Tao of transformation. Could it be that the other party was also proficient in the Tao of transformation? But that seemed unlikely. This was a space-time dominated by divine power. Moreover, that sense of oppression was related to the divine power emanating from the other party. Upon seeing the other person, Wu Li also smiled and quickly approached with courtesy. "Brother Pangda, long time no see, your strength has improved again. Haha. Recently went on a trip to the Sure Kingdom with those women from the Scorpion clan. We gained quite a lot." Pangda's character was hearty, without any concealment. This made Jian Wushuang develop a slight fondness for the burly man in front of him. Being a powerhouse in the tribulation realm, maintaining such a character was quite rare. Or perhaps, apart from Hu Qing, he hadn't seen anyone else like that. This was the second one. Pangda also noticed Jian Wushuang's gaze, stared back, and asked, "Wu Li, who's this kid?" "My nephew." Wu Li waved his hand, introduced Jian Wushuang, and then said, "He couldn't make it in the outer domain recently, so he came to seek refuge with me. Now he's got a job in the Qingyun sect." Jian Wushuang was somewhat speechless, feeling like Wu Li had taken advantage of him for no reason. But initially, his identity was just Wu Li's friend. Now that it had changed, their relationship was probably not ordinary. In this way, his identity seemed more complex. After all, the identity of a friend wasn't accurate. How could Jian Wushuang, an emperor, be just a friend? It could only be described as a relative by marriage. Outer domain? Pang De became very interested in Jian Wushuang after hearing about the outer domain and exclaimed, "For an emperor to not fall in the outer domain is already impressive. And you seem so indifferent upon seeing me. I suppose your strength is also quite formidable. Why would you go to a place like Qingyun sect, where nothing much happens?" Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but smile bitterly, unsure of how to respond. Fortunately, Wu Li was smooth-tongued. He quickly spoke up, saying, "Hey, we were being chased in the outer domain, got injured, and without any treasures for recovery, we could only come sneakily seeking refuge with me. If that's the case, when your injuries are healed, why not come with me to the Sure Kingdom? That's where you emperor types should be adventuring." Pang De nodded, showing respect for Jian Wushuang, which was why he said so. Jian Wushuang could only smile awkwardly and brush it off. Seeing the situation, Wu Li changed the subject, saying, "Let's hurry inside. Today is the celebration for Brother Mukin's birthday." As time was passing, many people had already entered the royal mansion. The three of them also headed towards the mansion. Outside the Wood King's mansion, it was particularly lively. Many savage beasts emitting the aura of the Tribulation Realm and immortal chariots were parked on both sides. There were even quite a few powerful figures of the Tribulation Realm. It was considered a rare event in UK. Many experts of the three Tribulation Realm came. In U Kingdom, experts of the three Tribulation Realm were considered top-notch, and there were even 4 Tribulation Realm experts who came. They were elders of the Qingyun sect. Elder Mukin came out to greet them directly. Wu Li and the others naturally waited tactfully. After the 4 Tribulation Realm super expert entered the mansion, Elder Mukin saw Wu Li and Pang De, and he walked over with a smile on his face. "Brother Wu Li, Brother Pang De." Elder Mu Chun hurried over and exchanged a few words with the two. When he saw Jian Wushuang, he also nodded. "Then, let us go in first." "All right. Make sure to have a few extra drinks later." The three of them had a very good relationship. Wu Li was the patriarch of the Wu family, while Pang De was a prominent figure in the Pang family, one of the top 10 families in the Yu Kingdom. In their youth, they were peers with Mukin. Upon entering the royal mansion, they were escorted into the banquet hall. The place was extravagantly decorated, even more so than when they took concubines. As Jian Wushuang was only an emperor, he couldn't sit at the high table with the other two. So they separated for the time being. Guided by a servant, Jian Wushuang took a seat towards the back. He stopped at a beautifully adorned table. Behind the table was a cushion with Jian Wushuang's name inscribed on it. After thanking the servant, Jian Wushuang sat down. The people around him were all emperors, few of whom he knew well. He didn't engage in conversation but instead used his thought power to eavesdrop on the conversations of the Tribulation Realm above. Through this, he gained a bit more understanding of the ancient Wood continent. At the same time, he noticed some emperors who could sit on par with the Tribulation Realm experts. Each of them was a prominent figure in the Yu Kingdom. Their combat power could rival the Tribulation Realm, and their divine power was about 100,000-fold. They were emperors with perfect divine power. These individuals, if thrown into the Qishan Temple, could be nurtured like treasures by the Jinling. However, they were merely geniuses within one of the kingdoms of the ancient Wood continent. Not to mention looking at the entire continent, even if they were to go to the strongest kingdom, they wouldn't rank among the top in the Sure Kingdom. Although he didn't have a deep understanding of the ancient Wood continent over the years, he was aware of some specific matters. Currently, the 8-star sects like the ancient Wood sect were somewhat similar to the Qingyun sect of the Yu Kingdom. Both were in a period of decline. In terms of current strength, the ancient Wood sect was not even comparable to the Sure Kingdom. Because within the Sure Kingdom, there was a terrifying flame god whose power was unimaginable, equivalent to the ancestor of the ancient Wood sect. In the contemporary Sure Kingdom, there were several universe masters at the 6th Tribulation Realm, and there was even one at the 7th Tribulation Realm. Just with this point alone, the ancient Wood sect couldn't compare. The current Holy Maiden of the ancient Wood sect was only at the 6th Tribulation Realm, and she was about to undergo tribulation soon with a high probability of failure. At that time, morale would once again decline. In reality, this situation was quite advantageous for Jian Wushuang. His and Wu Li's plan revolved around the Wanlu divine tree. The weaker the ancient Wood sect became, the greater the opportunities for the two of them. The Wanlu divine tree did not solely belong to the ancient Wood sect, but most of it was monopolized by the other side. It was impossible to quietly activate it. The two of them also didn't have the strength of the former lord of the Eternal Wood era. They could only approach the ancient Wood sect first, and then find a way to activate the Wanlu divine tree. According to the information Jian Wushuang had gathered over the years, many practitioners had entered the Wanlu divine tree, but apart from the disciples of the ancient Wood sect, there were very few. It would be best to first enter the ancient Wood sect and then use the Wanlu divine tree. This depended on today's performance. Yu Kingdom had a quota to attend the sacred assembly. To obtain this quota, it was not only necessary to rely on strength but also on connections. Although Wu Li had strong connections, it wasn't enough. Just as Jian Wushuang was contemplating how to obtain the quota, a loud shout came from outside the door. "Her Majesty Fengchen is here to offer congratulations." Sure enough, the peerlessly beautiful Empress had arrived. Jian Wushuang also retracted his thoughts. Even more so, he withdrew his thought power into his body, not daring to have the slightest exposure. His gaze also fixed on the door frame, wanting to catch a glimpse of the Empress's magnificence. The voice had just fallen. Leading the way across the threshold were two withered old men, dressed in splendor yet exuding restrained aura, but still capable of making others feel the complexity within them. For Tribulation realm powerhouses, merely scattered Tribulation cultivators. But even so, their presence commanded attention. After the two entered, they stood on either side of the threshold. Next came into view a cold and exquisite face, eyes sharp as blades, lips thin as edges. Clad in a golden dragon robe, with a vividly embroidered five-clawed golden dragon above, as she entered the banquet hall, one could faintly hear the roar of a dragon. At this moment, whether Tribulation realm powerhouses or emperors, all rose to their feet. Everyone bowed respectfully. The cold and elegant Empress remained unchanged in expression, calmly taking her seat at the main position. "Please rise." Only after hearing these words did everyone dare to straighten up. Jian Wushuang could sense the extraordinary aura emanating from her. A universe master of the five Tribulation realm, that was no mere title. Although he had also come into close contact with a sixth Tribulation realm powerhouse before, the feeling this Empress gave him was different. Back then, aiding Fuego, after all, they were allies, and he was very courteous, deliberately restraining his aura. But this Empress was different. Her aura surged directly. It was different for each person. For Tribulation realm cultivators, it was awe-inspiring. For emperors, it was breathtaking. After everyone had savored the moment, Elder Mukin rose from his seat, first spouting a bunch of useless words, then boasting about his own younger sister, the Empress of Yu, and finally, the banquet truly began. This banquet, truth be told, was rather dull. It was simply a gathering of old friends seizing the opportunity to come together. Who knows, perhaps there might be some stroke of luck, and they could plan some adventures together in the future. However, there was a highlight in the early part of the event. That was the birthday ceremony. From low to high status, each person stepped forward to pay respects to Mukin. It was also an opportunity to see various treasures. As the banquet commenced, someone took the initiative to approach. "Junior, I am the fourth guardian of the Mingjiao sect. I present a 9-leaf fan to Senior Mukin as a birthday gift." With that said, the person took out the treasure and offered it respectfully. Mukin chuckled and expressed gratitude with words, though his actions were less courteous. With just a glance, he signaled to his attendant to accept the treasure. Then, he nodded and exchanged a few polite words with the guardian from the Mingjiao sect. The guardian was tactful as well, not overstaying his welcome, and returned to his seat after a few words. Those who could present gifts were either geniuses among the emperors or formidable experts in the Tribulation realm. There was a clear order of precedence. Actually, the order was arranged according to the value of the treasures presented. Naturally, the stronger one's power, the more precious the gift offered. Just then, Jian Wushuang received a message from Wu Li. He would present the gift together with Wu Li, an emperor, accompanying a three-tribulation realm emperor to offer a gift together. This was quite a rare occurrence. Even some young clan leaders of major families didn't have this privilege. Wu Li intended for Mukin to value Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had no objections to Wu Li's arrangement. He was contemplating the value of the treasures brought to him. Just moments ago, a disciple from Qingyun's sect had presented a treasure worth a staggering 200,000 universe crystals. In his heart, he silently marveled at the wealth of the strong in the ancient moon spacetime. Within the Qishan temple, acquiring tens of thousands of universe crystals was an arduous task. Yet in the ancient moon spacetime, these emperor's prodigies could casually throw around several 100,000. The universe crystals he currently possessed amounted to just over 100,000. He was too impoverished. Initially, he had exchanged a considerable amount of universe crystals in advance. Now it seemed he had overestimated. In the ancient moon spacetime, obtaining universe crystals was much easier than in the Qishan temple. However, some of the treasures he possessed were invaluable even in the ancient moon spacetime. Like the temporal treasure, Skysight heavenly chessboard, and the beast god weapon. The beast gods of the ancient moon spacetime had long since fallen, their whereabouts unknown, with rare rumors even circulating about them, let alone mentioning beast god weapons. The absence of such treasures didn't mean there weren't ones more powerful than beast god weapons. According to the classification of the ancient moon spacetime, the treasures of the universe were also divided into 9 tribulations. This also depended on the strength of the origin within the treasures of the universe. The origin source within the beast god weapon peaked at the 5 tribulation realm, but now it was only at the 3 tribulation realm. To enhance it, nurturing was required. For a universe master at the 5 tribulation realm, at least tens of thousands of epochs needed to be nurtured to cultivate a universe treasure at the 5 tribulation realm level. The stronger the supreme treasure, the longer the nurturing time required. Above the 9 tribulations are the temporal treasures. Whether it was in the original Moro spacetime or the current ancient moon spacetime, there is very little information about temporal treasures. Almost none at all. It may also be because Jian Wushuang's status is too lowly, and he has not yet come into contact with the true core levels. Just like at this banquet, Jian Wushuang has seen and heard more than he has in the past 10,000 years. One precious treasure after another was presented, making Jian Wushuang extremely envious. Among them were many precious treasures cultivated from the origin. Unfortunately, they all went into Mukin's bag. Every epoch Mukin celebrates his birthday, he can effortlessly obtain so many treasures without moving. Having status, having identity is indeed good. Jian Wushuang also felt some envy. When the day comes for him to reach the tribulation realm, he will also experience the taste of being a regional overlord. This is just the status of a powerful prince. The wealth of that empress is probably even more astonishing. "Uncle, I'm late." A thick voice came from outside the door. Everyone's attention was immediately drawn away. The newcomer wasn't from the tribulation realm, but an emperor. He was burly, with a physique akin to a barrel, and his countenance was fierce and terrifying. By conventional standards, upon reaching the immortal stage, one could change their appearance at will. Even using some secret techniques would allow for a change in appearance. However, this emperor appeared in this visage. "That's the Grand Princess," someone whispered softly. Most of those present here had seen this Grand Princess before. There were also some juniors seeing her for the first time. All of them were taken aback by the appearance of this Grand Princess. Jian Wushuang was equally surprised. However, unlike these people, he sensed a familiar aura emanating from the other party. Moreover, he had just recently seen this person not long ago. "Tree Bear." Jian Wushuang raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile creeping onto his lips. The mysterious girl from Hundred Flowers Mountain who summoned the Tree Bear bore a striking resemblance to the current Grand Princess, and their auras were nearly identical. There was a strong connection between the two. Furthermore, by observing the opponent's life force, Jian Wushuang could tell that the current Grand Princess was almost certainly not her true form. This was something that experts below the five tribulation realm couldn't discern at all. However, Jian Wushuang could sense it thanks to the special life power. The current Grand Princess was definitely not her true self but rather the transformed tree bear. Her true form should not be here but in the imperial palace. Normally, this Grand Princess would take the tree bear form as her true self. Thinking of that mischievous girl, Jian Wushuang became quite interested in her cunning and scheming. The arrival of the Grand Princess delighted Elder Mukin, who personally stood up and, with concern, addressed the sturdy tree bear. "My dear niece, I'm so glad you could come. There's no need for such extravagance. Uncle, this time I've prepared a special gift just for you," the Grand Princess said, instructing her servant, "Stewardly, present the lotus heart." At the mention of the lotus heart, everyone's expressions changed. That was an extraordinary treasure. The lotus heart was a unique treasure of the Shi Kingdom, a priceless item. Regular people couldn't buy it even if they wanted to, unless they had strong backgrounds and extraordinary strength. Upon hearing this, Elder Mukin's heart stirred, his expression changing slightly. He covertly transmitted, "Jinshun, are you trying to bribe your uncle? Uncle, you must help me this time. Mother is determined to find me a husband." Princess Jinshun's tone sounded aggrieved, resembling an 800-pound chubby dumpling. Elder Mukin, who had always cherished his niece, furrowed his brows, sighing, "Niece, I can't help you this time. What the clan has decided cannot be changed by anyone." He understood why his niece was resisting so much, even resorting to transforming her appearance to ugliness just to avoid being married off by the family. But how could one resist the imperial decree? The kingdom of Yu needed a crown prince, and that crown prince had to be the princess. Hence the need for a husband. Moreover, they needed a husband with a clean background and decent strength at the same cultivation realm. But this princess already had someone in her heart. However, that person was from the royal family of the Shi Kingdom. Even if the other party agreed to become the son-in-law, the kingdom of Yu dared not invite the wolf into the house. The princess was the future empress. How could she accept an uncontrollable son-in-law? Even if the empress could face the Shi Kingdom with confidence, the clan wouldn't allow it. Princess Jinsheng pouted, casting a resentful look at her mother. Elder Mukin pulled Princess Jinsheng to his side and gestured to continue. Such family matters were better resolved privately. At this moment, Wu Li nodded towards Jian Wushuang, simultaneously transmitting, and soon they were together. "Wushuang, my friend, don't let this little girl deceive you. This isn't her true form. If this succeeds, I promise you, you won't suffer any loss," Wu Li assured through transmission. Actually, he didn't need comforting. Even if the other party's true self was like this, he had to go in with a stiff upper lip. This was about the Wanlu Divine Tree, the opportunity in the tribulation realm. According to Wu Li's most conservative estimate, whatever they gained inside, as long as they came out alive, they could quickly become 5 tribulation realm experts. This was also deduced from their past experiences. The prerequisite was coming out alive. And, of course, one had to enter first. Entering required the qualifications of the Sacred Assembly. These qualifications were very rare even in the Qingyun sect. Only by passing through the Yu Kingdom imperial family could one manage to get in. Wu Li himself had no problem. He had some connections in the ancient Wood sect and could easily get himself in. But getting Jian Wushuang in was a different story. After all, that was the 8-star sect, not something a half-step for tribulation realm like him could control. "Don't worry, I know what to do," Jian Wushuang replied through mental communication. He wasn't some clueless kid just born yesterday. How could such trivial matters bother him? After Pangda presented his gift, Wu Li slowly got up, deliberately calling Jian Wushuang over in front of everyone. Jian Wushuang behaved obediently, like a junior, and walked towards Wu Li. This caught the attention of many people. Some even recognized him. After all, he had been following Elder Mukin for thousands of years and was somewhat famous. Moreover, these people had heard that Jian Wushuang's relationship with Wu Li was not ordinary. Presumably, he was also an extraordinary emperor. "Mukin, Ever since my nephew joined your sect, he has received much care from you. It's quite sudden for us to come here together to congratulate you this time." Mukin smiled knowingly at this remark and replied, "Brother Wu Li, since he's a nephew, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I see that Jian Wushuang's talent is quite good among the younger generation, so it's not really considered as taking care of him. Even without my help, he could have found a decent position in the Qingyun sect. By the way, in the next inner disciple trial, Wushuang can give it a try." Jian Wushuang held the wooden box in his hands and felt a stir in his heart upon hearing this. Sure enough, a few compliments and benefits would follow directly. Even though he hadn't given any birthday gifts, Mukin had already arranged the matter of becoming an inner disciple for him. Saying it's a trial, how could he possibly fail? Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang and Wu Li's intentions were not just about becoming inner disciples of the Qingyun sect. "Wushuang, why don't you thank Elder Mukin properly?" Wu Li's expression turned serious as he instructed. Jian Wushuang respectfully handed over the wooden box containing the 100 flowers vine and pretended to be excited, saying, "Thank you, Elder Mukin. I will never forget this kindness." The steward of the mansion took the box from Jian Wushuang's hands. As usual, he prepared to report the names of the treasures inside upon opening it. But just as he was about to open it, a terrifying divine power leaked out from above. Although the steward of the mansion had seen much in his life, he couldn't help but swallow hard and pause for a moment. Then he loudly exclaimed, "For 100 flower seeds, and 100 flowers vine," and they hadn't even reached the first withered stage. This also meant that these treasures were just brought from the 100 Flowers Mountain today. Feeling the surge of power and hearing the mention of 400 flower seeds, many couldn't help but gasp, simultaneously speculating about Jian Wushuang's intentions, or perhaps Wu Li's intentions. Jian Wushuang, an emperor, bringing out such treasures. Many believed it was a gift from Wu Li, attributing it to Jian Wushuang. This segment of 100 Flowers Vine, if auctioned at this moment, could definitely fetch a price of 3 million universe crystals. But if 3 days passed, it would be worth at most 300,000. Such a grand gift was rarely seen even from emperors of the Tribulation realm. Yet here it was, brought out by Jian Wushuang, an emperor. Nobody would believe it. Princess Jincheng, sitting beside Mukin, couldn't help but show a hint of hesitation upon seeing it. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed the same vine she had been outmaneuvered for on 100 Flowers Mountain. Looking at Jian Wushuang, she narrowed her eyes. While others might think that this item was obtained by Wu Li and sent out in the name of Jian Wushuang, Princess Jincheng felt that there was more to it. The terrifyingly powerful universe master of the 5 tribulations, perhaps. Elder Mukin's eyes gleamed with excitement. He hadn't expected such a grand gift from Wu Li, but recalling the words Wu Li had said to him a few days ago, he began to understand. After today's banquet, they could have a chat. Such a precious treasure. Nephew Wushuang, you're too courteous. Mukin didn't just verbally agree this time. He personally stood up and toasted with Wu Li and Jian Wushuang. With so many people watching, it wasn't appropriate to say much more. Wu Li naturally understood and pulled Jian Wushuang back to their seats. Back at their seats, Jian Wushuang could feel many eyes on them. These people had their own calculations in their hearts. The kingdom of Yu was seeking a son-in-law, a matter that many had their eyes on. Now, it seemed that Wu Li had set his sights on this matter as well. The birthday celebration proceeded smoothly. As for the emperors of the 3 tribulation realm, they were peers with Mukin, and their numbers were considerable. There were over 100 strong individuals of the 3 tribulation realm who came to congratulate. Among them, more than half were universe masters. Only a small portion were scattered tribulation realm individuals. Scattered tribulation realm strong individuals represented those who could not advance further. Their strength and status would decline significantly. There was a considerable gap between them and individuals like Wu Li, a half-step 4 tribulation realm universe master. Apart from these people, the rest were 4 tribulation realm strong individuals. Regardless of being universe masters or scattered tribulation realm cultivators, 4 tribulation realm individuals had a much higher status than those of the 3 tribulation realm. Even though Mu Chen's background and status were high, there were still few who came. Those who came were either from the royal family of Yu or 4 Tribulation Realm strong individuals from the Qingyun sect. In total, there were 6 people. The treasures they presented, though unique, were not of too high value. The fact that they came was already the greatest face for Mukin. However, Jian Wushuang noticed one thing. Each of these Foper Tribulation Realm strong individuals brought along their family juniors or their own direct disciples. Although all were emperors, their strengths were impressive, each being very formidable. Moreover, they intentionally or unintentionally recommended their own juniors. Before Jian Wushuang could react, Wu Li transmitted a message to him to explain. Wushuang, my friend, pay attention to these people later. Their strength is not a concern, but their backgrounds are complicated. Like us, their aim is the same, all for the crown princess. Wu Li's face held a smile as he looked towards Jian Wushuang, nodding. Soon enough, Jian Wushuang understood. This wasn't for Mukin's benefit. It was for the empress. The birthday banquet was just a facade, actually meant for seeking a son-in-law. It seemed the rumors were true. The Yu kingdom was indeed serious about seeking a son-in-law, and they were eager to make it happen. This was probably related to the future position of the saintess. The strength and talents of the Empress of the Yu Kingdom would certainly lead her to participate in the sacred assembly, aiming for the position of the Holy Maiden. Once she ascended to this position, the Yu Kingdom status would rise significantly. At that time, there would be a need for someone to inherit the position of Empress. Currently, the Crown Princess was a very suitable candidate. For a future Empress, seeking a son-in-law was normal, and the son-in-law couldn't be too powerful. It wasn't about strength but about background. They couldn't marry someone with a powerful background. Strength didn't matter. As long as they were of the same level, even if they were stronger than the crown princess, it wouldn't be an issue. The throne relied on imperial authority. And imperial authority was the foundation of the Yu Kingdom, along with those slumbering scattered experts of the Tribulation Realm. Jian Wushuang's current identity and strength were both suitable. On the surface, his combat power might be lacking, but as long as he reveals some of his strength at crucial moments, there's nothing anyone can do about it. He also observed the emperor prodigies sitting among them. The strongest among them was just the young master of a prominent family in Yu, incomparable to the royal family of Yu. As for his combat prowess, Jian Wushuang thought it was just average, nothing too impressive. Among these people, his status couldn't be considered lowly, but it wasn't at the bottom either. Backed by the Wu family, he was also considered a prestigious family. Ignoring his true strength, just his current tenfold basic divine power put him ahead of these people. Over the years, Wu Li's layout seemed to have some effect. He had unknowingly been drawn into this vortex of contention. Some of the emperor prodigies beside him also cast unfriendly glances his way. It seemed everyone had the same goal in mind. Jian Wushuang remained calm, sitting still as if he were above it all. The birthday celebration was nearing its end as these people began to withdraw. Now only the Empress remained silent. Everyone was waiting expectantly. But they dared not meet the Empress' gaze directly. Instead, they waited silently for her to speak. On this day of my brother's grand feast, I also wish my brother a breakthrough in the cultivation realm. Advancing beyond the 4 tribulation, the Empress suddenly spoke, and the atmosphere warmed up. Mukin quickly stood up and respectfully accepted the treasure bestowed by the Empress. This time he didn't let servants take it. While the Empress was his true sister, for the sake of the stability of the imperial power, everything had to be orderly, leading by example to inspire others. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Mukin bowed and graciously accepted the treasure. The birthday celebration came to an end. Next, it was time for official matters. Mukin first interacted with various parties, expressing the intentions of the royal family of Yu. Of course, he wouldn't speak the truth even if everyone understood. It couldn't be said directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, on this day of my birthday celebration, I take this opportunity to announce the engagement of the princess to a worthy suitor. I hope all esteemed nephews will not feel constrained," he said, patting the broad shoulder of the princess, indicating for her to rise. Although the princess already had someone in her heart, she complied when she felt a piercing gaze. Some emperors, unaware of the truth, couldn't help but feel uncomfortable upon seeing the princess's reaction.